Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to bless all the members of the council who are here to use their talents for the good of our community. We ask you to be with the police department, the fire department, and all the city employees, that they too may serve you for the good of all under their care. Bless the discussions at this meeting, that all the words are spoken in peace with the desire to move forward in this for strengthening our community. We ask you to continue to bless that, and so that we can with confidence know that you will work all things for our good. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Ask the clerk to take the roll, please.
Councilwoman Gavarrecki.
Present.
Councilman Templin.
Present.
Councilman Cisco.
Present.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilman DiGiulio.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan.
Present.
Mayor Mategas.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. I have a motion for approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Motion.
Mr. Temple.
Supported.
Supported by Mr. DiGiulio. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I reluctantly announce my ongoing frustration and objection to the fact that the matter of the administrator's report once again fails to find its way to this agenda. I did hear from Mrs. Parker earlier this afternoon indicating that a report would be given. However, I don't see Ms. Folks nor Ms. Parker here, so I don't know how that's going to be given. Secondly, I had asked for a number of items to be placed on the agenda, which were, I guess, in her prerogative, but just so the citizens understand, there are certain things I felt of a rather pressing moment that should have been on the agenda, and once again, they're not. So I just want to list my standing objection to the way we manage this city's business, particularly when it comes to important information that the citizens have a right to know. Thank you.
Okay. Any other statements? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Oh, carried. Approval of the minutes for our regular meeting of July 8th. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan. Support. Supported by Mr. Cisco. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you. Citizens' comments are next, but I'm going to go through the Allen Park Rules of Decorum once again. An individual may only speak on an issue after the individual has been recognized by the chairperson. Comments from the floor shall be made at the podium at the front of the council table or at such other area as designated by the chairperson. Prior to an individual speaking from the floor, the individual shall identify themselves and state their address for the record. All comments shall be directed only to the chairperson. Speakers are not to address each other members of the council or members of the audience. Each member of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes on council agenda items and 5 minutes at the end of the meeting. All written statements should be given to the city clerk prior to the meeting so that copies may be made available to the members of the public body. No individual shall be allowed to make any defamatory attack or invasion of another individual's personal life. There should be no questions, comments, discussions, or attacks regarding anybody's personal life. The chairperson shall immediately rule out of order any person who begins to bring up such issues. If the chairperson does not do so, any member of the council may, by calling for a point of order, request the chairperson to rule the offending party out of order. If the chairperson does not rule the offending party out of order, any council member may call for an appeal of the decision. If the chairperson's decision is overturned, the offending person shall be deemed out of order. If the person making the comments is allowed to continue, the person who is being challenged or whom the comments are made against shall be entitled to make an immediate rebuttal statement. For purposes of these rules, as they relate to elected officials or city officials, the term personal life shall refer to anything other than that which is said or done in the person's official capacity as an elected official or the person's official city capacity. Members of the public body may question the speakers, but the members of the public body are not obligated to answer any questions or make any statements on the issues raised or discussed by the speaker. issues may be referred to an appropriate body, department, or individual for investigation and review. No person or group shall be allowed to disrupt the meetings or proceedings. Any individual who fails to comply with these rules after having first been warned by the chairperson to cease such action shall be ordered by the chairperson to leave and or be ejected from the meeting. So with that, are there any citizens' comments at this juncture of the meeting? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something at the point. We went past the citizens' comments, but our city administrator just appeared, and she would like to add something to our agenda. And if you want to, am I incorrect as to who's doing what?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that. Two things.
Turn on your mic, please.
Oops, thank you. I might need a longer arm. Two things that I would like if we can add to the agenda. I do have a couple of things that I would like to talk about and give some updates on. And so if you can put a city administrator's report perhaps after the citizen comments. And then the second item is for litigation purposes, we're going to need a closed session. And so perhaps the individual that we are waiting for is not here yet, and so perhaps that could be under the attorney's line there.
The litigation matter?
Correct, to go into closed session.
We've gone through the citizens' comments, so do you want to take your first item at this point then?
We have not. We haven't
Well, she
given
hadn't stated what it is, but
Oh, did you?
did I miss not here?
She said she wanted it after citizens' comments,
Yes.
but we haven't had citizens' comments.
Well, I was just going on
Oh, okay.
because nobody came forward, and then the clerk whispered in my ear that the city administrator and the emergency manager both came in. I didn't notice that.
Okay, I just think with all the confusion, I don't think that the residents knew that they were being able to come up and speak on citizens.
And I think we need to go back to corrections and approvals of the agenda, since that's back where we're at again, and get a new vote if we're changing the agenda, right? I would go back there and start over.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, we've approved the agenda. A motion to amend the agenda, I think, would be the appropriate item. I think, though, that we should have the report item. What is it that we're going to amend to? Ms. Folks?
The city administrator's report.
Yeah.
I have a new employee that I'd like to introduce. I'll give you an update on FEMA and also an update on Philomene.
Okay. So those are the three amendments.
Mr. Chairman, if I recollect the last meeting, I think several of the council members, I wasn't one of them that made this mention, so don't lay this on me. But I think several people mentioned that we'd like to see a detailed list of these items in advance so that the public who's routinely getting a copy of the agenda could be prepared. They may have questions about these topics, were they to have them in advance. I think Mrs. Gavarecki was the one who emphasized this, and I think Mr. Keenan as well, emphasized the importance of us having information. And since we're on that matter of the agenda, one of the items I had, of course, has to do with something that falls perfectly within the purview of our city administrator, and that was the ongoing failure to enforce the temporary sign
Okay,
ordinances.
but that's,
So I'd like that included in her list of items if she's going to make a list at this late hour.
well, I don't know that we're going to tell the city administrator what items she'll report on at this point, but those are the 3 items that she has asked that we amend and I would take a motion to amend for those 3 items.
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Ms. Gavarecki, supported by Councilman Templin. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I would just like to say that I think it's really unfortunate. For those of you that don't know, we received this agenda today at 3:33 this afternoon. It was the first time anybody up here had the opportunity to see what's on the agenda. That's pretty late in the hour, since I think Ms. Gavarecki made a motion about a year and a half, 2 years ago, that we had to have the agenda before the weekend so we'd have time to digest. Now, there's certainly not a lot of things on here that we have to digest, but I just think that it's unfortunate that we would get the thing at 3:33 and have to have it amended here not even 3 hours later. Surely these 3 items are not something that just came about in the last couple hours. And I don't have a problem with it, but I do want to state that I think it's unfortunate that the citizens, as Councilman Hayes said, did not have an opportunity to see what was on the agenda. There could certainly be something that they would want to speak to, and it's unfortunate that we had stuff at this late hour.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote on the amendment. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. It's carried. Going to go back to citizen comments because we've amended the agenda. Is there anyone who wants to come forward because you've got 3 items that you might want to speak to?
Brian Debo from Allen Park. I concur with what Mr. Keenan just said. I mean, come on, sneaking in items to the agenda, then ruin it was after the comments. I'm glad you backtracked and allowed people to comment, but come on. You really can't have an agenda on the Friday before the meeting so people can actually take a look at it. Last minute, that's ridiculous. It just shows that the city, the management of the city, I know that the EM controls it, but come on, that's ridiculous. You can voice your displeasure at the EM. You don't need to sit there and be quiet. You can sit there and talk out loud. You don't need to write private emails. You can talk. You can disagree with her. You can say things during the course of the meeting. Please, just don't sit back. Represent us. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Al Wojcinski, Vine Avenue. My question is on approval of the purchase agreement for 4,000 Allen Road. This is the first I'm hearing it officially. Is this being done by the EM, or does the council know about it? And it's a good idea on those 2 stop signs at, what the heck is it? The 2 stop signs by Fox, by the school. They were yield signs, and people didn't stop anyway, because that was my alternate. Anyway, that's just my one question. And also, are we going to get a breakdown of the sale of next door, the Southfield lease property? What are we getting? Where is it going? And the third question will probably wait for later.
My name's Donna Daniel. I'm a resident. I live on Luana in Allen Park. I came to this meeting tonight because I thought it was going to be on the sale of the property next door, and there was something that was going to be said about it. And I see it's not on the agenda, but I see the 4,000 Allen Road, which the last meeting I was at when that was discussed was an underwater problem, that when it rained and flooded, it was underwater and the first floor was underwater. And I guess I'm surprised to see it on the agenda with a purchase agreement. And obviously we don't know what's in the purchase agreement to know if it's somebody's going to fix it so it doesn't flood or everything else. But I just wanted to make mention that that doesn't sound like a good property for us. Thank you.
Hi, Marcy DiGiulio, Allen Road. Did you guys, Mayor, did you get a copy of the purchase agreement before today that you're voting on?
This is your comment period, okay?
Oh, you can't talk to me? Oh, can any of the council talk to me?
No.
They're not allowed?
Council allowed to do anything if they amend the agenda. This is a point for
Oh,
citizens' comments on agenda items,
Okay, I have a
please.
question if anyone got a copy of the purchase agreement on the council that they're being asked to vote on tonight, for buying a new city hall property. Thank you.
I see no other citizens coming forward at this point, so we'll move to the agenda items. First is the community announcement. The fire department is having an open house Sunday, October 5th from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. There'll be different things that we can learn about our fire department, but also some things that I think the children of the community would enjoy. So if you can make it there, I urge you to come. I would ask for, on number 1, a consent resolution for A, B, and C under item 1.
So moved.
Permits.
Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we skipped this, the city administrator's report.
Oh. Okay, I put it down at the bottom. Excuse me. Excuse me, Ms. Folks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. First of all, it really is my pleasure to introduce to you a new part-time employee, and this is an ordinance enforcement officer. As we have recognized, there has been a bit of a gap in our enforcement services, and that centers around zoning violations. And so I want to introduce to you, and he's here tonight. I'm going to have him stand up, and it is Matthew Lieb. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lieb, primarily these last couple weeks, has been training and getting a little bit more comfortable with our ordinances and our procedures and the city itself, even though he is an Allen Park resident. But he will be concentrating primarily on 3 areas, and that is sign ordinance compliance, which he has already been engaged in, vacant property registrations, and C of O compliance. Thank you. You can have it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and welcome aboard. Can we give him a nice hand, ladies and gentlemen?
I'd like to thank the city for this opportunity to serve my community.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Lieb. Secondly, we continue to work our way through a couple of different processes having to do with the rain incident that produced some flooding on August 11th, and specifically with FEMA. The week of August 25th, we had representatives that came out from FEMA and the county, and they were doing their preliminary review concerning private property. So they chose several different properties and went and spoke to some folks. Then just this last week, the week of September 1st, their focus was on the public sector. So they were back in town, their representatives, along with county officials as well, and were visiting public property areas. As maybe most of you know at this point, there is kind of a hierarchy and a step wise process that we work our way through. So the next part of this process is all of that information that we have provided to FEMA and the county is processed through the county. It will go to the governor, and then the governor will need to make the recommendation and ask specifically for the president to make a declaration. And that would be for this area. So we await what that next step is going to be, and waiting to see how the governor responds with this next step. The other item that I'm going to make mention of is, I know many of you have had concerns about 17215 Philomene. And this matter has come to our attention and is in the court system because of approximately 9 different charges. Those 9 different charges are actually for 3 different periods of time, as I understand it, from our prosecuting attorney. Last week, it was up for a pretrial, and there was discussion about what needed to be done with this property. The court allowed the owner to have the weekend to begin that cleanup. By Monday, however, the owner had entered into an agreement giving the city permission to take whatever steps the city needed to take to start doing the cleanup. In that agreement, there is an understanding and a commitment to pay for the charges that will result from this cleanup done by the city. And so that is helpful. Specifically, we have had the company of MJ White and Associates at the house at 17215 Philomene. Monday, they were there. Also this morning, there was time spent over there, and the information that I have received from Mr. Boomer is that there was at least one person from the company in some variation of a hazmat suit that actually went in there. There will be continued fumigation as well as cleanup on the property. With your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, there is one other thing that I just want to speak to real quick. I have seen some emails, and I have received information actually from the Department of Treasury concerning a grant opportunity. What's special about this grant opportunity is that it is focused specifically on distressed cities. The criteria actually gives some weight to those cities that have experienced or been in receivership within the last 5 years. So that's very helpful. While there is approximately 8 million that's in the pot, so to speak, and by the way, these dollars have come from revenues from state sales tax. Per community that is awarded a grant, there is up to $2 million. So internally, we have already started discussions and reviewing certain initiatives we will be applying. Thank you.
Questions from
Chairman.
council?
I have one.
Scavarecki?
In your FEMA discussion, and you indicated that the governor was going to be going to the president, was there a timeline on that, when he would be doing that by?
We have not been given
No.
a concrete timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hayes?
With respect to the Philomene property, could you maybe clarify for me, because I'm confused? I know that the judge apparently ordered the homeowner to try to begin remediation of the conditions. And yet, it sounds like the police were given the instruction, or were given to believe at least, that nobody was to enter the house. So over the weekend, apparently, the homeowner must have gone there with the maybe fool's mission of an idea that she could clean it when she was the one that probably created the problem. But anyway, and the police restricted her from entering, which probably is consistent with the protocol. Maybe the chief can talk about it. But what I was trying to understand was, the judge apparently said, you go clean it up and get some professional help, which she didn't get. So maybe that's why they told her not to go in. But I'm just trying to clarify, because another several days went by and this neighborhood is in a uproar over there, as I'm told. And I think there was to me, it sounded like there's a little confusion, because the neighbors were happy that she wasn't allowed in because they didn't think she could fix it. But on the other hand, the judge told her to fix it. So I'm just trying to understand, does anybody have, maybe council knows what the judge's order actually said?
You know what, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, I know Mike Hurley was the guy handling it. But do you know, Karen, did you see the order, or did you read the disposition of the matter?
There is no disposition of the matter at this time. What I do understand is that the owner did take the first step, and I did see in the driveway that there is a large container unit, if you will, to start the process. I cannot speak to what was discussed between any police that might have been at that location and the owner. So I can't really comment on what that understanding was on both sides. The one thing that I understand is that she then was very willing to talk to the city and sign her name to an agreement that said, go ahead, let the city do this. And so we did receive that on Monday.
And I think that's important to know, but maybe the chief, if we could, through the chair, if we could ask the chief to elucidate on this, because I think it's very important. If you're told to go fix it and then you're not allowed to fix it, somewhere there's some who's on first problems here. And I think I'd like to know, maybe the chief can tell us about that.
There's actually about 3 parts to what took place, sir. There were discussions with the owner of the property inside the prosecutor's office at the court prior to this case going before the judge. At that time, the discussions were that she was to get professional remediation help and that she had over the weekend to take care of the property. When she actually showed up at the property and the neighbors called the police, she did not have any professional assistance. From what we can see through the file, this is not a problem that can be solved by an individual homeowner.
Right.
The neighbors are concerned because when she goes into the house on her own without any professional assistance, she's going to aggravate the situation more than it already is. The actual case, there is no order to be read at this point because the judge's decision after that pretrial conference is he wanted the ordinance officer to be present for any subsequent proceedings, and he has adjourned that case till tomorrow. So what happened is she was not allowed to go into the home by police because she did not have any professional assistance. On Monday, we found out early in the morning that she had actually been trying to contact this Mr. Boomer's office late Friday afternoon to look into having the city render some assistance. So we brought her in on Monday, discussed the situation with her, and she agreed to then sign on to allowing the city to make sure. Basically what I explained to her is no matter what she plans to do in the future with the property, this problem has to be remediated. If she wanted to continue to reside in the home, since the house has been condemned, she's not going to be able to move back in until she has a clear certificate of occupancy, meaning this problem needs to be addressed. And obviously if she wants to sell the property, she can't put it up for sale because nobody's going to purchase it in the situation, in the condition that it's in right now. So that that is where the case stands right now. It will go back in front of the judge tomorrow morning.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. I
Chief, before
appreciate
you
it.
leave, I have one question for you, and then I have one for Karen, if I could. Just a point of clarification. I understand that when the initial investigation took place, there were some pictures that were taken, and the decision was made based on that. Were the pictures taken by the ordinance officer or by Downriver Animal Control?
This, the circumstances around this house were actually brought to our, it was a two-pronged thing. We were getting complaints about grass height earlier this year regarding the house. The photographs were taken by Downriver Animal Control officer, I believe, because they were called to the house because there was also a complaint made to them regarding animals that were being kept inside the house, and that one of the animals was now deceased, and a neighbor had observed, and this is going to be a little bit of speculation on my part. I believe there was a complaint that the neighbors observed somebody from the home burying the deceased animal in the backyard. That's why Animal Control initially responded, was for the animal concerns. Once they got there and realized that the situation was beyond more than just the animal, the treatment of the animals, then the police and ordinance were brought back into it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Folks, if I could just a point of clarification. You had said that the homeowner has agreed to reimburse the city for the cleanup. The email I received today, and I think we all received, said that that they didn't believe that she'd had the wherewithal to be able to do that, and that a lien would be put on the property. So I'm just curious, is it actually that they're going to pay the city, or is it going to be a lien on the property?
I think that's a two-step process. We generally would give a homeowner the benefit of the doubt where they've indicated a willingness to reimburse or pay for it. We'd certainly put the invoice out there. However, if it's not paid, it would go as a lien against the property.
Thank you.
Mayor, Chief,
Councilman,
when you went, thank you. When you went out to the house there now, did you walk around the sidewalk and that?
No.
Not at all, okay, because, you know, I did unfortunately, and unfortunately I had to throw everything in the washing machine. I went there 3 times, and I've never seen anything as disgusting as that. I've never seen a flea before.
No, I had 2 of my detectives that were out at the house when the initial police investigation began, and they experienced the same thing that you experienced. You know, it's a unique, unfortunate, and deplorable situation. That's why we moved as swiftly as we did from the court date, you know, through Monday to try to remediate this problem as quickly as possible.
The neighbors across the street are getting bitten by them. I mean, they're actually, that little baby across the street had bites on his legs from the fleas.
No, I'm certainly sympathetic to all the neighbors, because none of us would want it around our house, and that's why we're trying to tackle it as quickly as we can here.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then we'll. Ms. Folks, your comments are complete?
Correct, thank you.
All right, we'll get back to my consent resolution. Do I have a consent resolution for 1A, B, and C?
I made a motion, so I'll make it again.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Keenan, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hayes is seconded. It's a parade permit for Cabrini High School for their homecoming parade on October 18th, and a $100 fee. Street corner solicitation for the Allen Park Kiwanis Club annual peanut sale, $2 fee. Street closure request by the Allen Park DDA for part of Harrison Avenue and McLean Avenue from Park Avenue to Alley for the annual Touch a Truck on Friday, September 19th, 2014, with a $100 fee. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, then I will ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Carried. I received a resolution that I asked the clerk to send to each of us relative to Public Act 256 of 2011 dealing with aerial and explosive fireworks. The resolution that I had asked the council to consider is for the repeal of that act. There are two bills in the Senate currently to repeal the Aerial and Explosive Fireworks Act of 2011 and its amendment of 2012. And I understand now there are similar bills before the House. So if anybody's in agreement, as chair, I can't put the motion in for that, but
I'll make that motion.
motion by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Cisco. Somewhere here, I will read it for the audience. Our clerk's too efficient. He's got all these things stapled together. It makes it harder. Okay. Whereas the state of Michigan adopted into law Public Act 256 of 2011, Michigan Fireworks Safety Act that took effect on January 1st, 2012, whereas Public Act 256 of 2011 now provides for the sale of consumer fireworks, including aerial and explosive, in various retail locations, and severely restricts the authority of a local unit of government to regulate sales, possession, and use, whereas Public Act 256 of 2011, which liberalized the law on selling fireworks to unlicensed citizens and prohibited local governments from totally banning their use, has resulted in far more fireworks-related noise, litter, and potential safety issues. And whereas the additional business and revenue generated by Public Act 256 of 2011 has not been sufficient to compensate residents for the threats to their health, safety, and quality of life, whereas the aforementioned consequences of the widespread availability and use of aerial and explosive fireworks have prompted citizens to express their discontent with Michigan Fireworks Safety Act, demonstrating that the current state law poses a threat to the welfare of our citizens, and whereas previous efforts to amend Public Act 256 of 2011 have failed to resolve these problems, and whereas aerial and explosive fireworks continue to be offered for sale in Michigan, local law enforcement does not have the resources to enforce regulatory local ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Allen Park urge the Michigan Legislature promptly pass Senate Bills 1023 and 1024 to repeal Public Act 256 of 2011 and reinstate the ban on aerial and explosive fireworks to restore the quality of life and safety that our citizens expect. Be it finally resolved that the City of Allen Park hereby directs the City Clerk to forward this resolution to Governor Rick Snyder, Senate Majority Leader Randy Richardville, Speaker of the House Jace Bolger, Bill Sponsor Senate Glenn Anderson, our State Senator, and Representative. So, are there any comments by council? Hearing none, then I would ask for the vote on that. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you very much. And just point out something. The new weatherman came back. We've all been watching a lot more weather lately. And he'd been gone, I think it's Channel 7, been gone for 4 months. He happened to knock his eye out with a firework and had to go through 2 surgeries to be able to come back and not have a problem interfering with the other eye, but he lost that eye. So it is a serious issue. The other item is the Constitution Week that was proclaimed by the governor. I just want to read the proclamation. Thank you, Bob. On behalf of the people of Michigan, I, Rick Snyder, Governor of Michigan, do hereby proclaim September 17th to the 23rd, 2014 Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardians of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2014 marks the 227th anniversary of drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Rick Snyder, Governor of Michigan do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd. The proclamation was sent to me by the Daughters of Mongagan, Daughters of the Revolution, and they ask all the churches on the 17th at 4 o'clock to ring their bells. So those are the items that I have tonight. We will go to the Chief's traffic orders.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have in your package 2 traffic control requests. Both of them involve Arno Elementary School. The first one is a request by the school, the public school system itself, to re-sign the parking that is on the marquee side of the school, which is comprised of approximately 5 normal parking spots and one handicap parking spot, to be re-signed as school employee parking by permit only. They're making this request because of the small parking available for the staff at the school. These particular parking spots on this side of the building are located as the building is configured now, a very strange location, since the entrance to the school is now on Fox Street. These parking spots don't really serve any purpose as far as parents parking there to go into the building. So they would like to have these re-signed and reinforced, and enforced, I should say, not reinforced, enforced by the police department by permit only, and the school will provide the signage and the employee parking tags that would go on to the vehicles. You want me to cover the second, or do you want to go one by one?
With the council's pleasure, can we take them as a consent resolution? Or do we have to take them separately, Mr. Clerk?
I guess, more or less, your department just needs to know these were approved by council, right?
Yes.
Okay. I can see them both going as one.
Okay.
The second one involves the intersection of Regina and Fox Avenue. If you check the area around the school, all of the surrounding intersections within 2 blocks of the school are all designated with 4-way stop signs. I don't think it's any secret that I don't believe there's a child left on the planet that actually walks to school anymore. They all seem to be dropped off by their parents, even if they live 3 houses away. So there's our schools were built back in the days where we all walked 5 miles uphill to school both ways.
No shoes.
And nobody got dropped off. But today's day and age, parents, for whatever reasons, feel that they have to drop each child off at the doors. So this obviously has increased the amount of traffic around the schools. So this is the only intersection within that radius that is not being controlled by 4-way stop signs. Somebody commented, I don't know if it was a citizen's comment or somebody on the council commented that they drive that area and they see that the yield signs that are currently in place, which are only actually controlling Regina Street, are not being heated, and cars are regularly blowing through. So for the safety of the children that are in the area, and for better control of traffic, to control the speed of the vehicles going down Fox Avenue, I've put forth this suggestion that we re-sign that intersection with 4 stop signs.
Thank you, Chief.
And that's all I have.
We have a consent resolution for the 2 matters.
Motion?
Motion by
Supported.
Mr. Councilman Cisco, supported by Councilman DeGiulio. Discussion?
Yeah, I've got a question if I could.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan?
Chief, I'm gonna defer to you and just ask you, this is the unfortunate part of getting an agenda at 3:33. I normally drive these all and look at them before I vote on them. I have no problem with the stop signs. I think it's a great idea around schools. I don't think we should have yield signs. However, the parking, having not seen it, I'm gonna defer to you. I know you approved it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with it. I'm gonna have to, like I said, if I would have gotten this Friday, I would have gone over there over the weekend and looked at it and made an educated vote. It's a little hard to do that based on the picture I see.
I don't agree or disagree with it. It's parking spots that are actually in a public space right now because they lie between the sidewalk and the curb. They don't serve a purpose right now for people who are visiting the school because the public entrance to the school is not in the vicinity of these parking, where these parking spaces are. The common entrance is not on Marquise. The school is lacking in parking for its staff. I think this is a good resolution to get them a few added spots. Part of what I've been told is the problem is trash day parking. So when these spots are open on a first come, first served basis, residents in that area have used these parking spots to park their vehicles in because they can't have street parking. So by permit parking that would relieve that problem. It would also take some of the cars that the teaching staff currently parks on the street and give them a little additional parking. I don't want to call it off-street, but you know what I mean.
Can I
Give them
just
parking
follow up
spots.
with just another question based on what you just said? Can we limit that, put a time frame on it? I guess my question is, and again, not seeing it, I don't know where the residents' homes are in conjunction with that, but I know, like, for instance, on weekends, if somebody's having a gathering, a graduation party, I wouldn't want to see people get ticketed at off times for parking in these spots.
Certainly. I mean, we could indicate school employee parking by permit only.
From, say,
School
7 to
days.
5 or
School
something
days
like that,
only.
school days?
Or-
Could I make a friendly amendment to that effect, or?
Yeah, I don't see why we can't do it.
I
can
can just
support
change the
that.
order.
One more question, Mayor. Is that the angle parking there you're talking about by the dumpster over by the parks? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
There's a picture on the,
Yeah, I included a
included the
picture
I
in
see
the
it,
back.
but it's really hard to tell what that.
it's on the side of the
I'm not
building.
going to tell you who the photographer was.
Was there about 6 spaces there?
Was it?
Yes.
What he said?
Change your f-stop.
Is that what it is?
Do we want the Mayor Pro Tem Keeman limit parking by permit to school hours?
Maybe 7 to 5, I would think.
Yes.
They can get,
7 to
because they
5.
get there a little early and stay
Okay,
a little
school
late.
days 7 to 5.
Sounds good.
Does
Okay.
that sound good, everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
That Mr. Keenan is amended, and do I have a support?
Support.
Support by Councilman Templin. Almost said Officer Templin, but.
No.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a consent resolution, and the second one has an amendment to limit that parking to 7 to 5 on school days. So without any further ado, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. They are carried. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
And now we're at the first of the city, the attorney's 2 items.
Good evening. The first item to consider is a proposed offer to purchase for the building located at 4,000 Allen Road, commonly known as the AT&T building. The idea would be to purchase this building, and it would be used for a city hall. The seller is willing to sell the property for $760,000. He's willing to finance it over a 3-year period at an interest rate of 4.25%. At closing, $250,000 would be due and payable, and then the rest would be financed over the 3-year term. This agreement provides that the city would have it's either 53 or 60 days, depending on how you do your math, to meet certain contingencies. So one of the contingencies would be the inspection of the building and make a determination that the building is suitable for a city hall and police department. The city would also have 60 days to obtain approvals from the state of Michigan. And this would also be contingent on the property appraising for an amount not less than the purchase price, which again is $760,000. There currently is a lease being paid on that property for some equipment in the basement, and that would continue throughout the term of that lease. And those are the highlights of this.
Make a motion for the purpose of discussion.
I'll support that for discussion.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Keenan and supported by Councilman DiGiulio. Mr. Keenan, would you like to speak first?
Yeah, I would like to just a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that Mr. Boomer has done a lot of work, and I want to commend him for the work that he's done on the facility. I think somebody came up today and spoke about flooding in the facility, and I think that that is a miscommunication. We had 2 incidents. One was when we first looked at the building, there was a water line that broke inside the building that because they didn't have the heat on over the winter, and as all of us know what the winter was like, so there was some water damage based on a water line. We all had the opportunity to tour the building. When we did, Mr. Boomer immediately pointed out to us that the drains by what I'm going to call the sally port, the back of the building where there's an overhead door where you can actually drive into the building, were completely full of dirt, and we knew that at the time that we toured it. So in that huge rain that we had where Oakwood Hospital flooded and everything, a little bit of water in that sally port did make its way onto the concrete floor in the building. I think Dave said to me it was less than 2 inches, but that is not a major problem. He has had the 2 different groups have toured the building. The second one was the Boji group that has made the offer on this property here. He had communicated to me that they were impressed with the building, said that they were shocked at what good shape it's in and how the structure is, and quite frankly, I think all of us that toured it were that way. The building was built so that none of the interior walls are supportive. It can be completely renovated in any way, shape, or form. The second floor is already renovated. The third floor is gutted, which is also appealing. I've always been a supporter of it. I think it's a boost to the economy on that side of town. I think the price is phenomenal. I think that, as the attorney stated, there's a lease, and we had the opportunity to buy the property at a much elevated price, and we would recoup that lease payment. The lease, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is for 2 or 3 years extended out, and the amount of money that they wanted for the building would not be covered by that lease in that term, but they would anticipate it going longer, and to me that was a gamble, and I don't think we can gamble right now with money. So we could have purchased the property for in excess of $2 million, and we could have redeemed that lease from AT&T for their switchgear that they have in there and had some income coming in, or we could have bought the building for the $760,000, and I didn't think it was a good idea personally for me to take that gamble with taxpayer money. But it's clear that we have to move out of this property and the mold and the remediation and what have you. And I would just remind all of you that we're at the work session that we had in regards to this, our options, that this council over and over when we talked about selling the property next door stated that we did not want to use any of the proceeds from that property to build City Hall or secure some of our debt or add to any of our funds, that all that money was to be used to pay down the debt service on the Southfield Road property. And we have a gentleman that would like to build us a new City Hall behind here. Unfortunately, it would take all of the money that we just would be getting on the sale of that property without the real estate fees. All that money would go into to building the new City Hall in excess of $2.4 million, which would be another debt on top of the citizens of Allen Park, and that's a non-starter for me. We can buy the Allen Road property, use the $2 million bonds that we already have, and not have to add any more burden onto the taxpayers. And I think that that's the right way to go. The building's structurally sound. I don't know of any flooding problems. Dave Boomer, I talked to him again today, doesn't know of any flooding problems, with the exception of the clogged drain. We do have to do some reconfiguration of the front of the building to make it accessible for handicapped folks, but Dave's content, or he believes that we can do that for in around the $2 million range that we have in excess with the bonds. The sale of this property would pay for the purchase of the building, and to add the kicker to it, the gentleman that has made the offer to purchase this property, it was going to cost us $240,000 to remediate this property before he would take it, and he's letting the city know that if we let him do the build out on that property for us, he's going to waive that $240,000. So that's a nice boost too. That makes it so we cover all of it. So with all that said, certainly I believe that the Allen Road property is the way to go. And I have all the faith in the world that the attorneys have done their due diligence in the contract. However, I do have to say I agree with Marcy. It's unfortunate that we got this at 3:30 today, and I have not had an opportunity to read that agreement. I am not going to make a motion to table right now because I do want to give my colleagues an opportunity to talk. But I do believe we should table this matter at some point this evening. Thank you.
Any other comments by council? Please. Please.
Yes, Mayor.
Councilman DiGiulio.
Okay, now, Mr. Covier, I heard you say there's a tenant in the building? Right now, there's a tenant in the AT&T building, correct?
That is correct.
And partial of it? And who, how much is the rent they're paying?
You know what, I did not bring the lease. It's, you know,
Okay.
it's in a range of, I didn't bring that lease, so I don't want to say, but it may be $70,000 or so.
Okay,
that they're
and
paying.
they're gonna pay that to the city if the city buys the building?
No, let me,
They're not- we're
sir,
they're gonna
again,
sell it.
that's why they reduced the price.
Well, I know you're saying they reduced the price, but didn't they buy the building for like $200,000 recently? And put another $200,000 into it, so they got about $400,000 in it, am I correct on that?
I'll tell you, what you are correct in is that lease payment to the existing owner will continue, and we could have either, the seller would have either increased the price, and the city could have received that payment, or the option was reduce the price, and they would continue to make that payment. Now, I don't know what those exact numbers are, but I will be happy to provide that information to you. I think we had that at that one meeting, but.
We did. It's $270,000
but
that they paid for it and $210,000 in back taxes.
Okay, I just don't want to say an incorrect number.
And then they put another-
$480,000.
They put
Right.
another $20-some thousand in
Right.
over,
And
well
we're,
over 500.
and we're gonna pay $760,000 for something.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna let them take the rent out of the property. We're already giving them over $200,000 more than they paid for the property recently. And then there's a piece of it being rented, leased, and I think they have, what, up to 15 years that they can renew the lease, is that correct?
Not 15 years, no.
Well, they can renew the,
No, they have up until 2017. Take a look at that, I'll show it to you.
All
You
right,
got it in front of you, sir?
no, I
Let me
don't.
point it
but
out.
you know, I'm just going from memory. I mean,
No, but
I'd like to hear it said.
Well, that's
I'd like
why I
to
want to
hear
be very clear, and I want you to look at it. I think you
I'll
have it in
believe
front
you.
of you, sir.
I'll believe you, whatever you say. I mean, I'll believe you.
Okay,
I'm
well-
just asking questions.
Okay, it's, the existing lease is October 31st, 2017, and then they have one option to renew for 5 more years.
Okay, so they can renew it, and they continue to get that rent. We
That
own the
is-
property at that point, but they're gonna get the money.
That is correct.
I've never heard anything like that. You buy a piece of property, and the seller keeps the rent from it. I've never heard of that.
You can get that if you want to pay the $2 million for it.
We're acting like we don't have any clout in that deal? What do you mean $2 million, Bob? That's silly talk, $2 million.
They offered us the property for, what was it,
They
2.2
can offer
million?
us the property for $5 million. That doesn't mean we have to pay it, though. I mean, I see ourselves getting into another Southfield lease properties, or better known as the Jimmy Lifton property. I just see us getting into another deal like that.
Yeah, and this transaction is contingent upon the property appraising for the sales price.
Well, and it very well may appraise for it, but still, we're gonna let them collect the rent. They're gonna take the lease payments from the property that we own. I've never heard of that.
Oh, okay, and they're willing to do it the other way if we pay more money for it.
Well, I think we should I think we're in control of the money. We don't have to pay what they want. They don't tell us what to pay, we tell them what we offer. And then, who is this Mr. Hafler? Can you answer that, Mrs. Parker? Has he got something to do with the financing on this property?
Mr. Hafner?
Yeah.
I guess it's not ringing a bell.
Well, you and Mrs. Folks, I think, had some dealings with him in E-Course. He was there with Mr. Baji.
Mrs. Folks was never, well, no, that's not correct.
Who was there with Mr. Baji the day we were at the, in our
Yeah,
meeting?
I really don't know the person's name that you're referring to.
Well, I have his card at home, but he told me that he had business dealings with you and Mrs. Folks in E-Course. Do you know who I'm talking about? He was sitting right next to you. He was sitting next to
Oh,
you.
you're talking about Brian Leffler.
Leffler. Good.
Okay, all right, it took
Thank
a
you.
moment.
What
Okay,
is his,
Yeah, actually, Brian Leffler is a financial advisor through Baird. And so when you consider issuing bonds for any purposes, it's a financial group that provides support in that regard.
I think you need to clarify that he was there on our behalf, the city's behalf, not on
Right,
Boji's
he's a
behalf.
financial advisor
That's where the
for the,
right, and
he
you
works
worked
for
with
the
him
city.
before. You worked with him before in
Well,
Ecorse, correct?
Well, I've worked with him in a number of communities, yes,
I know.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
And
just,
he-
you know.
And actually, Councilman DeGiulio, he also works with the state as well. It's not a.
What is his capacity then? What is he gonna do for us? I
Well-
never understood what he was there for, I'll be honest with you. I didn't understand it.
Okay, well, for the city, he has been involved with the bond issue that we're looking at as far as retiring the debt related to the Southfield lease properties and refinancing the bonds. He's the financial advisor that is assisting the city in that regard. So as part of that process, you know, there's a number of things that the city is required to do in order to be prepared to go out on the market. So he's worked with us, for example, with the DDA, with the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, in order to get things structured properly. Okay?
You know,
And,
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, that was it on that comment, but I just thought perhaps I should just comment that the purchase agreement is actually the second step in the process related to acquisition of the property. Initially, the city council did authorize a letter of intent to allow some type of consideration related to the property. And as the emergency manager, with their concurrence, I did execute the letter of intent. The purchase agreement was sent out to the council last Thursday for review, and I believe if the city clerk can clarify this, did information go out to the city council last week related to items that would be placed on the agenda? I thought I received an email.
That is correct. On quite a few items, they were notified prior to Friday, so.
Yeah, and actually with the purchase agreement, it was placed, I believe, on the agenda either yesterday or today. Can you clarify that, Mr. Clerk?
That one was added this morning,
Okay.
but again, I'll stop with that.
I think you should continue and tell
please?
us. We heard
Mr.
Keenan
Mayor?
say 3:33.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of where things are at.
Councilman Cisco?
I just want to say, you know, I've heard that we didn't have this purchase agreement. I have an email from Ms. Parker, September 4th, that this purchase agreement was sent to all of us. I've read it a number of times. So if maybe somebody's mistaken that they didn't read it or didn't get it, or maybe somehow through email transmission, maybe somebody doesn't know how to read their email. You know, there's always that possibility. But this email was sent by Ms. Parker, purchase agreement, on September 4th. We all have it, or for those who didn't get it for whatever reasons. I just want to make that comment.
I wasn't through yet, Mayor, okay? We had a chance. I was still talking. When you gave everybody else a chance to talk, well, I was still talking. I was listening to Mrs. Parker politely.
Well, let me just go here.
Okay, and then come back to me.
Either that or you can let him finish. All right. I just have to say, after our last work session, I think I provided some feedback back to Ms. Parker. I didn't respond on the September 4th email. But there was concerns that night, and I think we had the Boji group go out and do an analysis of the AT&T building. And I do commend Dave for all he did, but I don't think that report back from them has ever been shared with the council. So I didn't, unless I got it and didn't read it, so.
Just a comment, the report from the Boji Group has not been submitted to the city, and so as a result, it has not been submitted to the city council. I'm anticipating getting that information probably either Friday or Monday of next week. The reason why the item was placed on the agenda is because there's a kind of a time frame under the letter of intent that was signed. And if the city, for example, decided not to move on with the purchase agreement, the letter of intent has expired. And so as a result, the property then would actually be considered again on the market.
Okay, and then since we did sign the letter of intent, we did go out for a request for proposals for this here property, and somebody came back with a proposal to purchase the front part of this property and also maintain or retain or build a new city hall in the back part of the property. I'll just say this right now, that work session, I think I had some different thoughts after that evening. First off, we own this property. We own all of it. AT&T is on the tax rolls right now, and money coming into the city. And I'm not sure what their taxes are, but over a period of time, I wanted to try to do some numbers, so I knew it may pay for itself by keeping it on the tax rolls and not taking it off the tax rolls and building a brand new facility in the back here, which I don't think, even if somebody developed the front, it's not very desirable for other development to possibly go back there. So I've kind of changed my mind, and I know Bob said he might request for it to be tabled, but at this point here, I'm not ready personally to make the move to AT&T. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Councilman DiGiulio.
Okay. We had a chance to purchase that property when it was in the $200,000 range, is that correct? You know, we knew it was for sale, and then these people bought it up thinking, well, we want it, so they bought it up. But, I mean, I'm not for buying that property over there. I'm not for putting City Hall right there next door to Malvindale. I mean, there's no reason to do that unless we're gonna share services with Malvindale. So, I just can't go with buying a piece of property and the tenant that's in the property gives the rents to the seller of the property. The buyer, which is us, the city, doesn't get the rent money. How does that work out? I mean, I just don't understand that. I mean, it'd be like selling my 3-family rental house and and I get the rent from it. I sell the house to someone and I get the rent money. I see that as the same thing here.
Just a couple points of clarification.
Well, just let me, have I heard from everybody yet at this point?
No.
Mr. Templin, do you have any comments?
Well, there's a few things. I was out of town for the Boji meeting when the proposal was made for a new city hall. But I do know is that they want to take whatever, seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, the $2 million that we're going to make from next door will be applied to the new city hall here, right? And
That's correct.
2.4.
yeah, and I have a problem with that because I'd like to see the bond debt paid down. But without all the information that we have, I know we've got a price for what a new city hall is going to be. We have something of a price if we're going to renovate Allen Road. It was like 1.5, I think, that was done by French Associates, right?
2.1 million.
2.1.
2.1 million.
Okay. Now, is that set in stone for everything that needs to be done? Because I know when we walked through that building, we said there was issues with the entrance. We need handicap accessibility. Is that going to be included in the 2.1, or is it going to cost more than that? I mean, I don't have all the information here that I can say that. Initially, I like the Allen Road idea. I really do. It's cheaper. It doesn't put us on the hook. We've just about got the money to pay for Allen Road and have it renovated, and we're done with the deal. We don't have to invest anymore. We get a new city hall. We're going to have a bill. We're going to have payments to make for X amount of years, and it sounds like we're not going to have enough money for it anyways. If we sign this purchase agreement in the 60 days, we're putting in $5,000. So if for some reason we are we gonna be able to get all our information that we need to decide whether or not we want Allen Road or do we want a new city hall? Because the new city hall might be a better deal in the long run if we're looking at something that's new, energy costs and things like that. How much does it cost to heat and cool Allen Road? How much is it gonna be for a new building? I've got so many questions. Are we gonna have that information before the 60 days are up so we can say that, okay, right, guess what? This purchase, no, I don't want to have anything to do it. Can we get out of it because it's going to cost too much to remodel the building? These are my questions. I still like Allen Road better. It doesn't put us in a debt that a new city hall will. I mean, I know that the property tax on Allen Road is $70,000 a year, give or take. I looked it up on our website. So that's, for the.
Although that doesn't all come to the city.
Yeah, right, yeah, I know that, but that's a total that goes to Wayne County and everything else. So it's probably, now we're down to maybe $30,000 or $40,000 that the city gets out of 70, if that.
Well, if it's personal property tax, that might be going away anyways. I don't know if it must be personal property.
Right.
So the new tax law has changed and you might, in another, I don't have one.
She doesn't have one.
In another 5 years, we might not have anything for them.
Okay.
It's decreasing every year.
So are we going to be able to get this information is Boji going to come through? Is French Associates going to give us a more price?
Here's what's happened since the meeting that occurred with the city council. The Boji group has actually had their staffing, contractors walk through the building, and they're planning to put together, their assessment of what the cost will be to renovate that building. In addition, I've asked them to also review their estimate with French and Associates, since they're the architect that put together that $2.1 million cost for renovating the building. Mm-hmm. The $2.1 million does not cover certain things like the entryway improvements because of handicap accessibility. It doesn't cover that. There are other items that may not be included, and so that's part of the reason why I think there's a benefit in having contractors walk through the building to give us a more accurate assessment. In addition to that, we do have at least 2 estimates related to new construction, let's say behind City Hall, which would not include the cost of acquisition because the city currently owns the property itself. And so we will have that information as a basis for comparison. I anticipate receiving the information no later than next week, and then once we receive the information, we can hold a work session with the city council, have you review everything, and then move on from there, to make a decision on what direction you would like to take.
Mm-hmm. So you still want to go with the purchase agreement? We still want to keep this ball. We're trying to juggle
right.
2 or 3 different balls in the air at one time, right? I'm not good at juggling. I'm not a real estate agent. I don't.
Right. And again, I'm not at a point to recommend either option. The reason why it's on the agenda is because of the expiration of the letter of intent. And now, certainly, another option might be, and you can chime in, Mr. Attorney, is maybe to see if you can extend the letter of intent. I don't know if that's an option or not.
Well, what that letter of intent does is it just enables them to try to sell to someone else.
Right.
Whether or not they want to extend that, we can obviously ask them to do that if that makes sense. But are we going to wait 2 weeks and then be back to where we are
now,
today?
Yeah. Well, and I think, as you had mentioned, there are certain provisions that allow the city to do its own due diligence too.
So you're saying that if we vote on this tonight and we were to vote it up, we still can get out of it, we still would get the 5,000 back. There's really nothing that's gonna lock us into anything tonight by just voting to it.
Well, remember, that's why I went through those contingencies, so there are certain contingencies, so, you know, if you say, I changed my mind, well, that don't cut it. But if the property doesn't appraise, we can get out based on that, okay? If our inspections determine that the property is not suitable for our intended use, which quite frankly is quite broad, and that's why it was drafted this way, you could get out of that, so.
What about the fees for the build-out, if that would exceed what our estimates are now?
That would, you know, that would be part of our inspection that would be part of that contingency, yes. Yeah, if the build-out was too much. Yep.
If it costs too much to build it out, why do we?
Right,
why
that's
would we
my
want
big
to do it?
concern.
I mean, was there, and I know had a conversation with the mayor about, do we have to do improvements to the parking lot if we take over the building? And how much is that? Is that something that needs to be done if we take it over? And then how much is that going to cost? I mean, these are some of the questions I have that I would like to have answered before at least before the 60 days, so we can.
Now, you know, it's my sense that we'll have pretty good build-out numbers by, you know, within that time. But, you know, energy reports and things like that, I don't know if anyone can even do that, let alone, I mean, that would be so expensive and so speculative by engineers.
I would hope that the builder could say that it's gonna, that he's got an idea that it's gonna cost, it's gonna cost this amount of money to heat a new building.
Well, what I thought you were
new
talking, yeah,
construction.
comparing this building to a brand-new building. I don't know if there's an engineer who could do that.
Oh, okay.
That's my point.
Right.
Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cisco. Yeah, I just like some clarification on this action that we're taking. This is a concurrence, is that correct?
That's correct.
And at any time, you, Ms. Parker, or the state can stop this sale from happening, even if we vote yes on this concurrence. No. Is that correct or not?
It is, in the sense there's a provision, I believe, in the purchase agreement where the approval would be required through the state.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's a little different answer, though, right?
Well, I'm not a lawyer.
No, but once Joyce puts her hand to this, she cannot arbitrarily turn it on, you know. However, the state could, you know, the state could say, we don't like this.
Well, as she is part of the state, I'm assuming that she
Right.
talks to the state, and the state, she has to have concurrence with the state also. So.
Right, and this specifically provides for approval of the state. It would be
That's
contingent of that. Specifically has that.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Hayes.
I know I speak to deaf ears most often when I raise this question, but I've never been in favor of any new build, new lease, new buy, because I've never been convinced that we've ever considered the universe of property that exists within the city under our ownership. I've never been persuaded or shown anywhere that a city hall must be in one extant building, that you must have a central building that's called City Hall. We have many functions that are not in City Hall, all around the town. We have most of the administrative functions here, to be sure. Furthermore, I've objected to the notion that the criteria for the so-called build-out is this mystical 27 to 30,000 square feet. Says who? Who says 30,000? Maybe it's 16,000. But the architect has a vested interest in the more square feet, and so does the builder, because they get paid by the foot. So there's really no, you want to talk about due diligence, there's been no investigation, no research, no planning. It's just, let's buy something, get it over with. Mrs. Parker's leaving in a couple weeks. whatever. There'll be a review team, and let's get this over with. Well, I'm not prepared to get it over with until I'm convinced that this city, and I'm not, and no offense to Mr. Boomer, but he's not an engineer, nor a builder, nor an expert or an architect. He's just a guy who's worked for the city most of his life. I think he's an electrician. And God bless him, he probably does a good job at that. The fact of the matter is, we don't have the data we need to determine that this is something we actually need. And I would say further that until we have that, I cannot support any such moves. And I think that, you know, with God's help and any luck, in the next 5 years, maybe if we could make do for a while, and I think, and I've said this here publicly, and I've said it many times, the police station is probably our most critical need. I keep hearing about this mold and all this kind of stuff. Well, they work there every single day. I don't see anybody getting carried out on stretchers yet. And I'm not saying it's optimal, but we heard the chief stand here and say he's been in there for 20 years, and they were complaining about the same thing 20 years ago. So for God's sake, let's not exaggerate something that may be a problem. Let's find out what exactly it is we need, use our resources efficiently and effectively, and spend the next 5 or 7 years coming up with a real strategic plan instead of some kind of advisory committee thing where we're talking about low-hanging fruit and concerts in the park. Okay, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mayor, Councilwoman Gavricki.
I just have one more question, and I fault myself for not following up on this. On August 11th, when we did have that major rain event, I had heard through rumor, and like I said, I didn't follow up with it, that basement had flooded more than the 2 inches. So I think you've said it didn't, so I just want to make sure it was possibly just a rumor, or did it flood more than that? Does anybody know?
I can't say it was 2 inches. I think, I don't really believe anyone from the city was in the building at the time.
Dave Boomer told me he went in the building. He hasn't.
Well, no, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't, but I'd heard that the area where the delivery thing was, it was full and it
Yeah, I
had
know,
gotten in.
yeah, there was water, but I can't tell you to
Okay.
what extent.
And I didn't, okay, thank you, and I didn't follow up myself. Thanks. That's it.
I'd like to make a couple comments, if I may, at this point.
Ask for points of clarification too. I have to wait till you're done.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Well, I'd asked the mayor earlier for some points of clarification, if I could. Just a few things that I want to go back on. As I stated here before, when I first saw the building up for sale, and I called Ms. Parker and Mr. Boomer and asked them to tour it, the building was up for sale for $1,060,000, not $210,000 or any other number other than that. I don't know what happened in how the real estate agent that had it listed ended up purchasing the building, but when we first looked at it, it was up for $1,060,000. I do agree, we had the opportunity to buy it, and it wouldn't have been at $1,060,000. It probably would have been somewhat more in the range of what we're talking about right now. But they did buy it for the $270,000 and paid the back taxes of $210,000 and did put some money into it. So they have roughly $500,000 invested into it. And we are paying, as Councilman DeGiulio said, $260,000 more than that. But everybody that we've talked to thinks that that's still a steal. Now, I don't know what the real estate agents did to get the building or how they negotiated it. They then offered us the building for, I believe, $2.2 million. And they own the building. We can do whatever we want. We don't have to buy it. But they offered it to us for $2.2 million if we wanted the lease. And as the attorney stated, the lease is only for 3 more years at roughly around $70,000. So for that added, $1.5 million, we'd have a guarantee $210,000 coming in. But we're assuming that they're going to go ahead and continue adding their 5-year options to it because the AT&T switchgear is in there. However, for me, as I see more and more cellular and everything else going on, I don't know how long AT&T is going to need switchgear. And that's what I'm telling you is a gamble for me to want to go in and pay, even if we negotiated it down to 1.5, so we pay an extra $800,000, we still only have guaranteed income of $270,000 or $210,000. That's gambling with taxpayer money. I don't think that's the right way to go. That's why we would let them have the option on the lease, and that if AT&T pulls out after the 3 years, they're stuck, not us. So I want to be clear about that. When we brought the Boji Group in, and they wanted to build the city hall back behind the building, they estimated it at between $5.4 and $5.7 million on our property. Now, we can talk about taxes on the Allen Road property, but the fact is that if the offer goes through that we have on this current facility, those are gonna go on the tax rolls. It's gonna be more of, we'll gain much more taxes on the supposed hotel in Hardee's that will go on this 4 acres than we get from that building over there on Allen Road. And I would just, again, say that, and I said in the work session, that I do not agree that that property back here is not valuable. It's on I-94. Anybody that's ever, and I'm just using it as an example, I don't know, I don't have any real estate people or anything, but every Cracker Barrel that I've ever been to has been in a similar situation to what you'd have back behind this building, where it's on the expressway and easily visible, but you have to get off and drive up some street to go to it. I think a Cracker Barrel or something of that would be perfect for back there. Once the property next door is renovated, once this property is renovated, I think that property back there is going to be valuable. I don't believe for a second that that's just going to sit there for 20 or 30 years and nobody's going to do anything with it. I don't buy that at all. And I just think that when you're talking about potentially $3 million for Allen Road or 5.4 to 5.7 million for a new build, that's a no-brainer to me.
Councilman Cisco.
I just want to bring out some facts that we had at that work session that was, I can't remember when it was, a few weeks ago.
August 11th.
What was it?
August 11th.
August 11th. And one of the things that we had asked Mr. Bogie from the Bogie Group was what would it cost to build that AT&T building at today's price? And basically, based on the square footage, at $150 a square foot, and this is just a box. This is not finished. This is just building a box. To build that AT&T building at today's money would be $5 million. That building also can withstand an F5 tornado. It was built for that. So, I mean, it is a solid building, and I think that's been confirmed by the Bogie Group. And I also want to just talk about, Ms. Gavarecki talked about the taxes. I believe the taxes on that AT&T building are around $70,000 a year. I think that's the price. So to get to $2 million, it would take 30 years. 30 times 70,000 is $2.1 million. And all of that would not go to the city, obviously. So we kind of look at things in a way, $5 to possibly $6 million on a new facility, brand new, versus $2 million to renovate, around $3 million for the AT&T property, finished property. That we're not sure of the numbers at this point, but it's a numbers game, and this is basically about the police department. You know, the vast majority of the money spent on any building will be because of the police department, not because of City Hall. You know, City Hall is almost like an afterthought in the building. The majority, I want to say 90 to 95% of the money is going to come because of the police department, what has to be put in due to regulations that they're under. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of some of those things. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions?
Let me just, since everybody else had 2 or 3 times, I'll just say simply that, you know, I think we heard the chief speak to the fact that the cost of the police station is jail cells, but since ours are not technically jails, they're holding cells, they don't fall within those same horribly expensive guidelines. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, that my modest proposal that we consider using some existing resources is completely ignored by my colleagues, completely ignored by our emergency manager, our administrator. When I deign to offer the suggestion that we use a small portion of the community center, which is a rather new building, it was totally transformed in it. We can't put the police station there, which I never proposed. And this is the sleight of hand kind of methodology that we see used so often up here. We just ignore the point being made, throw it out. We talk about 5 million or 3 million like these are numbers that have some credibility. We don't have the first blinking idea whether it's 3 million, 1.5 million. how many square feet. We don't know a darn thing about this. And yet we talk like, well, 5 million here or 3 million there. I'll take the 3 because 3 sounds better than 5. It's 2 million left after all. But the point is, we don't know what those numbers are. And to rely on who this Boji group is, I have no idea who they are. They're one of many hundreds of builders, I'm sure. And the French group is one of many hundreds of architects, I am sure. But in order to start, you need to have a finite understanding of what it is you're going to accomplish. How many square feet? Well, it's 28,000 because that's what French group said. Based on what? Based on 10, 15 years ago when we had twice as many cops, twice as many staff in this building? Are they still building it for the maximum bureaucracy, or are they building it for an efficient, and probably going forward, we're not going to have those kinds of numbers. Maybe we'd like to see bigger numbers, but are we going to build it like we used to be, or are we going to build it to what we need right now? And hence my argument, ladies and gentlemen, that we look at our existing thing, make do for a few years, try to get by, figure out a way to deal with the treacherous situation that exists in our police station. I agree that it is serious. I don't think it's life-threatening, but I think it's serious. And we do something and try to amalgamate what we have. And there's more ways to skin a cat than just AT&T or building new, and that's all I want to say about tonight. Thank you very much.
I would like to make some comments, ask a couple questions, I guess, first. Under 5B, we have contingency approvals. It says the State of Michigan and Allen Park City Council, but it does not say anything about Wayne County. And I raised the issue because I believe in the French report, they said we could fix the parking lot for $45,000. As I understand the water retention policy, and lest anyone think water retention is not too important, remember the 11th and remember last Friday night and whatever. In 2003, the county passed a law that new structures with parking, hard surface parking, which it has to be under our city codes, under the International Building Codes, you have to be able to retain, I believe, 5 inches of water for a 24-hour period. Now remember, we had 5 inches of rain on the 11th, and you'd have to retain that. You can't retain that on the surface over there, which means, fortunately, the least expensive way would be to put a retention basin back there, but there's no estimate of the cost of that system. And that means you've got to drain those 3 acres of parking, and you're going to have to pump that water into that retention basin. And then at some point, you're going to have to discharge it back to, and I don't know where the closest sewer system is, but it seems to me that there's a cost that's, I have estimates $500,000 to $800,000, and I don't think it's in the French proposal.
That's not a new build. It's already there.
It's a new owner. It's not a new build.
Owner right now, they didn't put a retention on it.
They don't have an occupancy permit. And I think that's a big difference. I don't think you can get by, and I will give you the example when Home Depot went in on Telegraph and Goddard, and it took the Kmart property. They took the property. They didn't build a whole new building. They didn't tear it down. County made them tear out their 10 acres of parking lot and put a retention system underneath it, because that was in a commercial and a kind of industrial area. Our property goes back against the railroad tracks, speaking of 4,000 Allen Road now, and therefore a retention basin might be reasonable there, rather than an underground system, which is much more expensive. But I think we ought to have that at least as a contingency approval. I don't know whether we get a county waiver or not, but I don't want to be in there and say, the county says, well, go ahead, and we don't have it as a way to deal with it and deal with the cost. Because I would point out, I am old enough to remember when we acquired this building, and we acquired it with all the great intentions to improve it. And I doubt that we have ever made an improvement since we bought it to speak of, other than to build this council dais. And so when you go into these used buildings, you've really got to make certain that you're getting everything that you need. We do not have, everyone's pointed out here, a lot of surplus cash. And you certainly don't want to go in there and be $1 million short and need something, or be $2 million short and need something. A new building is going to meet your needs, and it's going to hopefully have a better utility usage, a better IT usage. But it's a question of what's the difference in the spread, and we really need to have those good numbers. I would say that at the 11th meeting, I never spoke one way or the other, but I certainly didn't say that the sale of the South lease property, all that would be locked into the bond situation, because we don't even know what the bond situation is, because the state's handling that. They're going to come back and say, here's the bonds, here's how much the refinancing is, and here's the takeout of the other bonds. And I have no idea how close they are on that, because I've had calls. I had a call today from somebody that owns those Southfield lease bonds. And they said, well, they haven't been contacted yet. That kind of bothered me. If we're renegotiating, I'm kind of wondering who we're renegotiating with. I don't have such a problem to put us under the 60 days. I think council has said is we have a lot of leeway if not satisfied with any aspect of the property, building, or suitability for purchaser's intended use of the property. Purchaser shall notify seller in writing of such dissatisfaction and determination. I don't know if that means the same as if we had a change of mind within 60 days, we can walk away for no reason. I doubt that it means that. I would say I went and looked at that property. I could only look in the window, but I could see a water line in the lower level that appeared to me to be well over a foot in height, which would suggest there was a lot more water than 2 inches in there. I went and looked after our rain the week later. It had been dried out, and there were spots on the floor again. I don't know where or how that came from. I can't tell how it's there. I guess the one thing that I hadn't thought about when we looked at it initially, but really bothers me, is I'm not very excited about having a city hall next to a gun range where people are going to be walking around, excuse me, next to a city hall with all kinds of weapons, particularly when you look at the basement. Unless you do a lot of renovation to protect the police department, you could shoot right through a window at any policeman and just about take out any of that lower level. And if you say it doesn't happen, unfortunately, the world has a few really crazy people in it. And I think you don't take risks that you don't have to take. As to this building, I will say, and I will say to anybody, anywhere, it is uninhabitable. We are getting more and more complaints at Human Resources. How many? I didn't ask. But I know this. I watched myself on TV one night, and I said, golly, I cough a lot at these meetings. I'm not normally a person that coughs much. I'm in this city hall almost every day for at least 4 hours. And I notice the air in here is terrible. We tried to have meetings in here when we first came in, and we found out that at least 2 council people couldn't meet in an area back by the building department because the mold is so great that it gave them allergic reactions. This building has to be vacated regardless of where we finally end up as a permanent home. And so I don't think sitting here and saying, well, we'll endure for another year or 2 years, I just don't think it's good for the employees, and I don't think it serves any valid purpose. Seems to me that we've got 60 days. We have some outs, but I do agree with colleagues that have said, we really have to have good numbers between a new building. We have to make some guesstimates about uses. The other thing that bothers me about this, the building we're in is a 62,000 square foot structure. The building at 4,000 Allen Road is a 54,000 square foot structure. And as Councilman Hayes pointed out, most of our designs are somewhere around the 28,000 to maybe 30,000 as the needs for a police and city hall. So you've got 75% of the space equal to what we're not using. We're still going to have to heat it. We're still going to have to probably air condition it somehow. I don't think you can just try and seal off the roof. Everybody knows that you better have vents for your roofs if you're going to be able to keep the lower part of your house cool. It will have a much higher utility use, and let's be certain, we went into this place, probably, we weren't going to be here more than 15 years when we went into it in 1972, so here we are, 42 years later, we're still here in the temporary quarters. So I think we got to be certain of which direction we want to go and how this council would appraise or recommend to the emergency manager, but I'm not so certain that that building's suitability is good given the next door neighbor and the risk that it presents to a city hall. So,
Mayor, can I ask you a question? You had mentioned the retention pond for the property on Allen Road. Are you insinuating that we wouldn't have to have something back here for the new building?
that we wouldn't have to have something back here? I don't know. I'm gonna believe that, Mr. Boyji, I wanna see what his plans show. Because I think, those will be required, and certainly the vacant parcels over there will be required. The 1 million square feet that was bought by, Time Equities, I think they're right, they can avoid it. Same use, no change.
Well, actually, just through the chair, what is certain is when you take permeable land and you cover it with impermeable land, you have to put in retention ponds. Transfer of ownership doesn't necessarily trigger that. Now, when you resurface, the county has debated that for years. So I assume that's what you're talking about, Mayor. Not so much the transfer of ownership, you're talking about more so resealing.
Well, if you look at the 3 acres, it's not.
But that, in my...
It's not, great sections of it are not usable as it sits.
But it is all covered, right now it is all blacktop.
Of sorts, yes. So, it is.
And in retention basin or not, it still the cost of resealing is to be addressed or considered, right?
Right.
You would have to do that here too.
Right. Yeah, no matter where you are.
Yeah, but this is 3 acres with the building taking almost a sixth of that space. So if there's no other comments to be made or questions to be asked, I would ask there's a motion for a concurrence with the emergency manager signing the real estate purchase agreement as presented us. And all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
We'll take a roll call vote, please.
This is a roll call vote on the signing of the purchase agreement for 4,000 Allen Road. Councilman DeGiulio.
No.
Excuse me, I think it's a recommendation or concurrence with the emergency manager.
Well,
Mr. Clerk?
yeah, actually, is the approval of the purchase agreement and a recommendation to have me execute the agreement. And I would certainly send this on to the state to get their concurrence on it.
So it's an approval and recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
You know what, in just a friendly amendment, the mayor raised a few points. We could add those points to this agreement. We could include that.
The retention, the water retention.
Well, just address, you know.
Just the county's approval.
Just, yeah, consideration of the county.
I'd be in favor of that.
Is there a second to that amendment for a county approval?
Second.
For the record, what was that again?
An amendment to,
Contingency 5B.
yeah, that not only the state and the Allen Park City Council, but Wayne County approve.
Are we, for clarification, are we asking for Wayne County's approval of the purchase agreement, or is that part of the due diligence
That's
within
part
that
of the due
60 days?
diligence,
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to
So it's
clarify
not
that.
part of the actual agreement?
Agreement, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, that's just a caveat. That Wayne County. You want Wayne County to approve it?
It sounds like, based on the mayor's comments, there's a question about retention and whether a retention basin might be required, and as part of that process, there may be a need to get the county's approval or some type of action on their part related to the parking lot. Am I correct, Mr. Mayor?
Right, because we have under there, you have language, it's not just this agreement, it says usage approval from building and zoning departments which regulate building land usage. And to me, the county has a potential land usage regulation. They may not, as council has suggested, exercise it depending on what we're doing, but I'm just kind of tired of buying these things and then finding out it's a whoops, and it's another $800,000.
Well, do you think we're covered with that? I mean, it's quite broad. But I can add including but not limited to the county of Wayne.
Well, yeah, I just get nervous because I don't want to come back and say Wayne County is giving us a problem, and they say, well, that's not in your agreement.
No, I agree. So we can, that's why I raise it. So what I can do is, I will address it in the agreement. And the motion can then, again, be to address the mayor's concern with respect to the county of Wayne.
Mr. Mayor, if I can maybe add just a little bit of clarification. If I understand this correctly, the motion would then actually have an element that would add a 5-parent D requiring the purchaser's obligations under the agreement would also be contingent upon obtaining approval from the county for water basins or retention if needed.
As one of the contingencies.
As one of the contingencies.
No, a waiver saying we wouldn't need them. Because it's an existing facility that's already paved. Our contention is that we would not need to put a water basin in or any kind of a retention pond because it's not a new build. And we'd like a waiver from Wayne County stating that they concur with that.
So, so a waiver or in the alternative?
Well, that's what that's why I can put that in the, I can address it in the agreement.
Okay, all right.
So we're just going to address the inclusion of county's approval by council under the amendment. Then I just need
Now,
somebody to move that amendment.
That's it.
Because we have Mr. Keenan and DiGiulio on the concurrence and approval, but we're amending the agreement that they ask for concurrence and approval. So I need, if the council chooses.
Motion.
Motion by
Templin.
Templin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cisco. Is there any discussion? I think we actually should vote the motion before we vote on the,
Yeah, because that was just to add it. So it's going to be a resolution to approve the purchase of to sign the purchase agreement for 4,000 Allen Road and recommend execution of the purchase agreement by the emergency manager and address the mayor's concern with Wayne County.
Right, but the
Because he's going to write the legal language.
right, but the motion to amend, I think, has to be voted on separately, would it not, Mr. Clerk?
It could be. We've done it in the past where we've asked the motion maker if it was okay. I mean, we could vote on that, though. It's either way we've done it.
Well, I think that just, I would think we ought to have that motion to amend voted separately. So I'll ask for that on the motion to amend. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. So now the motion with the amendment pending is the concurrence and approval and recommendation that the emergency manager go forward with the real estate purchase agreement with sellers. And if there's no other discussion or questions, I'll ask that we move that to a vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
No.
We'll need a roll call vote, please.
Okay, we'll start again in alphabetical order. This would go with the original motion and the amendment. Councilman DeGiulio.
No.
Councilwoman Gavarecki.
No.
Councilman Hayes.
No.
Councilman Keenan.
Yes.
Mayor Mategas.
Yes.
Councilman Cisco.
Yes.
And Councilman Templin.
Yes.
The yeses have it. The motion, the original motion and the amendment passed together.
We have one item left, which it requires a closed session, so that before we go to that, I am going to go down to citizens' questions and comments. You have up to 5 minutes, and then we'll take comments from the elected officials, city administrator, emergency manager, and then we will adjourn to a closed session.
Charles Blown, Champaign. So you guys had the work session on August 11th where the flood day happened. Personally, what you guys should have had the work session is in that building so that you guys know if the basement flooded or not. But just that's my opinion. Secondly, if we could have the meetings go back to 7 o'clock p.m. so that people have the chance that work during the day, that get off at 5:30, 6 o'clock, be able to come here and voice their opinion. If I can remember right, 8 to 10 years ago when it was the Hubler administration, I believe the meetings were at 7:30. But I'm just saying maybe we could have it back at 7 o'clock. I want to say good job to the DTE and all the city workers who've been working hard with the power outages and trying to get fast. I know some neighbors of mine in the past couple, like in a month, have had their power outage a couple of times, but then they get done quick, and hopefully, like, I know it's like you all are citizens, you guys represent us, and I just hope you guys do the right thing and make the right decisions. Thank you.
Hi, Mercy DeGiulio Galka, Allen Road. Bob, I was almost proud of you. You almost did the right thing tonight. I was there. I just can't believe that you guys just authorized a purchase agreement for a piece of property after we've just gone through the Lifton Studio thing that we paid almost 30 million for, and we just sold it for, what was it, 12? Okay, and we're doing this again. would you ever do this if you bought a piece of property? I'm gonna ask. Tina, thank you. I was very proud of you. Larry, I was not proud of you tonight. Harry, I wasn't proud of you. I wasn't proud of you, Mayor, I'm sorry. Dad and Dennis, I was proud of you. But Bob, you were right there. You said, let's table it until we can look at this. And you waffled. And I want to tell you something that my father taught me since I was a little girl. We had things that we were taught when we were younger. And one of them was the golden rule. Does everybody know what the golden rule is? Oh, what's the golden rule, Dad?
The man with the gold makes the rule.
Thank you. And the one with the gold makes the rules. So if we think that these people were beating a door down to buy this AT&T building, that it couldn't have waited another 2 weeks, no. They paid $400, we're giving them $700, plus they want to keep some $70,000 in rent. Thank you. Thanks, Walt. I need you. We're doing again with the studio thing. This is something you would have never done with your own money. Why would you do it to the citizens of Allen Park? I'm dumbfounded. I have to go. Bye.
My name is Robert Turner. I'm probably the nearest resident to the AT&T building. I'm going to go where Mr. Hayes is talking about. Okay, you got black and white, and you got the gray area. Okay, we haven't covered the gray area. You know, I'm asked a question multiple times, can we share jail service with another community? The hang up on this new city hall is the jail portion. You can put people in cubicles in an office. Now, I understand there was a conversation with Melvindale about sharing their jail services. I don't know if it was a no-brainer or if it was even discussed. So if you could share, let's just use Melvindale for example. Okay, if you could share the jail service with Melvindale, then you eliminate the expensive cost of building a jail. And then you go where Dennis is going. You could move a portion of City Hall into the community center, and you still wouldn't affect the activity of the community center. I think there's a better way of doing this. I like Bob's approach. I don't want to take that $3 million and continue to extend a debt liability on the bond. So I agree with Bob 100% that I want that money to stay to pay the bonds off. But I like to go where Mr. Hayes is saying, let's go to this gray area and think about it. I mean, we may be able to do this thing for $1 million if you share a jail service with another community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Brian Devo in Allen Park. I can't believe that you guys just made a decision to buy for a purchase order that you admittedly don't have all the facts to. And let me remind you, we have an emergency manager, and last meeting it was pat on the backs because we just borrowed $3.3 million. We went further in debt, and you're clapping because we just borrowed $3.3 million. The only options are buying a new building, or producing a new building, or buying AT&T or whatever, and rule out of hand we can't go in the community center because the police has to be with City Hall instead of finding someplace special for the police. And also remind you that another commitment to the citizens was broken. A trust, an agreement was broken with the citizens. I pointed out last meeting that our revenue was $20 million and the expenses were $17 million, a difference of $3 million. And if you take in the previous year's deficit, which was $700,000, we had a surplus of $2.3 million. Per the agreement with the citizens when they voted for the special millage, There was a 10% rollback if we exceeded the expenses by over 10%. And guess what? We exceeded it. However, the next day, the rules changed. The rules changed to 10 to 15% and 1 to 2 times the debt ratio, service ratio. The rules changed. There was an agreement with the citizens. You changed the rules. Now, these rules weren't changed in public. Prior to the election, the millage vote, it was discussed at town hall meetings. It was discussed at city council. It was discussed at all sorts of special venues. But now, when there's a change, it's hidden. It's put into an emergency manager's directive, executive, whatever it's called. It's put in there. How many people actually read those? I would wager that the people on the council hasn't read these executive orders, and yet the change was put in there deliberately. Now I have to ask myself, and we have an executive running the city, and an EM who comes with a lot of experience, and she lowballed that number of 10%. Why was it dramatically changed? It wasn't just changed by a few dollars. It was dramatically changed. Why was that? What was the reason why the big change? Right after the period that we hit the change. Now you're talking about a new building, $5 million. By AT&T, but we're not going to know how much that's going to cost to retrofit it, but we'll just sign a purchase order to begin with. We'll rule out any cost-effective measures like the community center. I don't get it. You don't scream, you don't holler, you don't yell, you don't fight for the citizens. We got screwed. There was an agreement that was torn up right in front of the citizens, and yet how are you going to expect us to support you on anything that you talk about? We don't know what the facts are. You can talk about the facts. We don't know if those are the real facts or not. I think the people were deliberately deceived. You can put in whatever descriptor you want. The bottom line is what was told to the citizens when you got the yes vote is no longer true today, and that is a big break of the trust. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Kevin Rourke, Allen Park. It's been a long time since I've been up here. First, I was going to talk about the Open Meetings Act after watching a lot of TV with you guys, but after 3 years, hopefully you guys have decided what you can and can't say. But Ms. isn't here right now, but Ms., back in the Hubler administration, and Marcy's gone too as well, I could have sworn we looked at the AT&T building. So if you can go back into the records and look and see why we did not buy it back at that time. I think the dollar, the construction, some of those things were some issues with it. But what puzzles me a little bit is when I was sitting back there, I wrote doubt in the minds, because 4 years ago, 5 years ago, many of you sat out here, criticized the previous council for what has been discussed as next door. The decisions that we were trying to make, and I see the doubt in your minds because of the uncertainty. But believe me, when you listen to the attorneys, no offense, when you listen to the bond people, no offense to the bond people, that say you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and then you say, okay, go look at it for us and get back to us. And the next thing you know, the purchase agreement you just agreed to, you've already bought that. And now you're waiting for an out from the county or whatever. The initial, like Marcy said, it's hard to believe me and Marcy were talking about this, stealing my thunder, that you had that doubt. You should have tabled it, waited for information, and then what are the alternatives? What's the other plans with it? Because you've made a commitment. To me, whether it's 60 days, 90 days, I think Ms. Parker said you were at the end of the 60 days. So by you signing today and say, I'm giving it, are you giving her by tomorrow to say, hey, it's a done deal? But the other part, I've talked with some of your council people before, behind here, you're talking about a council or building a city hall. Take a look at moving the police to the fire department, build a Quonset hut back here where you can store your equipment. Your DPS yard is now back here. You have wetlands back here. You get DNR approval. You take care of your biggest issue of putting police and fire together. And if any of you have walked through the DPS building, Their lunchrooms are cinder block strong. Your jails can be retrofitted into that building. You have, as we talked about before, you have that gas tank right there that fills everything right there. You have storage underneath for the equipment, for their cars to park and their safety, and you're closer to the jail. So hopefully you can do that due diligence. You still have time to look at possibly moving police out of here, put them where they belong with the fire department, because I would hopefully before you leave, you guys are looking at public safety officers or other alternatives to give us the safety and things we need. So I'll leave it with that. We talked about a grant for $2 million we can get. You have $2 million sitting from the other, you know, it may take you $1 million to put a Quonset hut back here in a nice space for the DPS to house their stuff. And then that's up to the people that own the property in front. Also, one last thing, Ms., if you can check on too, we used to have, there was a turbo program or something from the county that when we were gonna sell this land back again at the studio deal, they were gonna tear it down for us and pay it. And then there was people that wanted the wood in that church. I mean, the arches and the wood and the quality, the people were to come and take it. And somebody wants that. So recycle it, take it, whatever the case may be. But I don't know, if you can come back, you can't change your vote. But again, call the real estate people that you know and think about, again, spending that money. I learned a lesson from it. Hopefully you who are watching us learn that lesson. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor. Al Wojcinski, Vine Avenue. Okay, this is in regards to the house on Philomene. Is anything being done by that homeowner to help the neighbors, or are the neighbors on their own?
I don't know what that homeowner would do to help them, but I don't think that she's approached them at all.
Okay. Question in regards to the Allen Road property. How about having the citizens go through it on a day? Open the building up to the citizens so we can go through. You want it to be our future home? Open it up so the citizens can actually walk through. On the outside, you can see the conditions of the windows, the caulks falling off. The windows obviously have to be replaced. And I want to be sure about this. What was the estimate on the renovation cost of that building?
The estimate, excuse me, through the chair. The estimate from French and Associates was 2.1. That was done over a year ago.
Okay, now, what happens if there's asbestos in it?
I mean, just to clarify, there is another inspection. I mean, there's a new one is being prepared by another group of experienced contractors. Is that correct?
That's correct. And in addition to that, the city probably will have an independent, separate evaluation done on the building.
The more people we have go through that building, taking a look at the nooks and crannies, the water line in the basement, the windows, you figure you're looking at, $1,500 a window, and to secure the safety of the police department, you're going to have to the thick windows and everything. The cost overruns are going to be tremendous. Now, regarding the August 11th work session, what time was that?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
What time was the city council meeting?
We didn't have a city council meeting on that day.
That was the day it flooded.
There was no council meeting.
It was a Monday,
It was the next day.
and the council meeting the next day was canceled because we didn't have any power here at 5 o'clock.
Okay, but
Not only
I
Friday,
saw no notice of that work session, and I'm here usually every Monday or Wednesday. I didn't see any, publication of that meeting. Was it posted, Mr. Miz? Okay, then I have to take your word for it. Okay, was brought up by Mr. Work about moving the police department onto Roosevelt. The Ballast building is for sale. That whole block is for sale. Right where the fire department is, where the DPS is, the Ballast steel, that's all for sale. That would make more sense, like Mr. Rourke said, about having the fire and police together, you know, close to each other. And the courthouse is right across the street. Instead of transporting prisoners, we could, well, walk them across the street. And Mr. Giulio was right about the house, the property being sold on Allen Road for $270. They paid the taxes, so they're making a 50% profit, and actually basically doing nothing. And you know, I would like an answer about the people, the citizens, us, going through, you know, Allen Road. I would really like an answer on that, sir. And through the chair to Ms. Parker, when is your last day here?
I'm not sure. Actually, it's supposed to be closer to the end of the month, but until I receive notification, I can't really give you the exact date.
Okay, because I heard there was an extension being sought either by the state or by you.
No, sir.
No? Okay, that clears that rumor up. And everybody, would you please have a good night?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Simmons, and I live on Keppen in Allen Park. Sometime the week before Labor Day, I sent an email to Mayor and Ms. Parker and Ms. Folks asking about consideration to waive permit fees for those of us who were victims of the flood that have to rebuild. And I've not received an answer yet. I did go ahead and pay for my permits because we need to rebuild. So I just would appreciate if there could be an answer. I don't know if you're hoping that maybe FEMA will provide funds for that, or what, you know, what is going on with that. I've not submitted that bill to my insurance company yet, because I'm waiting to hear, you know, what's going to happen with that. And going into the next concern that I have, it's kind of related. When the flood occurred, we had 5 feet of water in our basement, and we lost everything in there. We have to replace everything, which I call it the bones of our house, which it's not furniture, but it's our furnace and our washer and dryer, our hot water heater, our electric panel. And so right now we're waiting because last Friday I had requested to have the water shut off because we have to make some repairs to the meter and water valve area that's on the city side. And when they came out to shut off the water, they couldn't shut it off because I guess the outside valve shut-off thing was stripped. So they said they were going to put in an work order for it to be, I guess they have to dig it up out there and replace the stuff. And so they could not give me a day or time. So I've been calling the last 2 days, and I did get a call back and was told that maybe they would come out today, and they did not. And so they said if they didn't come out today, that maybe it would be Friday, but they can't tell me. And I know that part of the problem is that there's a lot of water main breaks going on right now. And I don't blame the water department or DPS for this. But I have people who need to do work on my house so that we can try to go living back to normal. We do have temporary hot water so that we can take showers. But anything else, you know, I mean, we do have power just because the panel has to be changed out, but we do have power. And so I wondered if there's any way that possibly some extra workers could temporarily be brought in to try to help with the workload right now, because I'm concerned about having to go into the next week and waiting, and then possibly going into the next week, and we're talking about that the weather is going to start getting cooler. And right now, we have no way to heat our house. And so I don't know who makes that kind of a decision about either contracting out these little jobs, like somebody coming and just replacing, and I don't know if it's a little job or not, but replacing, you know, the outside valve while the guys are working on the water main breaks. I feel bad asking for something like this when I know that there's this other thing going on, but I just didn't know if there might be something that can be done to have temporarily hire workers or contract somebody to do something like that. I don't know if I'm the only person.
Well, Ms. Simmons, I don't want you to give me your address on the microphone, that, you know, you have certain limitations at your house, but could you just give the address over to the city administrator so that we could deal with the problem this week for you?
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
But give her that address, okay? That saves us running around trying to look it up. And
Okay, I
right.
appreciate that. You can ask in the building department, but that's fine, I can do it. I will do that.
All right,
I
thank
will
you.
do that.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Debbie Getloff, Kevin on Allen Park. I had so much I wanted to talk about tonight.
Just
and
move
I was
closer to the mic.
just unprepared for this. I thought after the studio debacle, anything that was going to be purchased would be up for a vote before the citizens. You folks are a non-money making entity. You rely on the taxpayers to be able to perform and do in turn what you are doing for the city of Allen Park, representing its citizens, et cetera, et cetera. I worked for the restoration company in Ipsy that did 2 of your major water damages, and they have recently been purchased by a much larger company. They are very, very willing, I'm sure, if you call them, to review old records if you have mold. You should have warned us as citizens coming in here to such an unhealthy environment, because maybe we shouldn't have been exposed to it. And police officer, I love the open carry. I thought that was I feel very secure this evening. We do not have the type of money to purchase something new. We can probably revamp. I heard some great article or comments from people that in turn, if you look a little bit further, that can be done. Mold remediation works. If that in turn is the big problem. But I thought, and I may be wrong, was it not established after the studio, any purchase by city council was to go up for a bid or go up for a vote before the citizens? Am I wrong in understanding that?
There was a resolution or a article passed by a vote of the people, which the governor said was improper upon opinion from the Attorney General, and did not amend the charter of the city.
Okay.
All right. So the charter, which was amended in 1999 and did change from what was a prior bond proposal, if you were going to take on long-term debt or bond, the people would have to vote on such an issue.
Okay.
That was in the old charter.
Okay.
It's not in the new charter.
Ms. Parker, before you leave, is there some type of information you can give to the citizens as to how we can keep everybody in line every time a little bit of money comes in, and how we can strive for transparency just to make sure that maybe somebody's not in the pocket of somebody else in some deal or something, because it was a fiasco before, it should have never happened, and we're all very concerned. And if it's all right, could I call you next week?
Oh, certainly. And,
Okay, thank you.
And I do plan to have a meeting with the city council, and I'll share information with the public as well, as far as what to expect with me transitioning out, and what role the state will have in that process, and what controls will be in place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I spoke with you before, and I dropped the ball of not coming up here. I have a concern with our city, with the empty homes, the for sale homes. When someone buys a home in Allen Park, is there any type of ruling where they should live in it any particular time, or can people just buy up properties?
Well, when you buy the property, you make a statement that whether you're going to live in it or not live in it. You
Okay.
file a homestead exemption affidavit.
Okay,
It
where
is
would that be?
fraudulent to file that and then not live in the home.
Okay, where would
We
those
also
be
have an
filed?
abandoned built,
Where would those be filed? Are they
property
public
transfer
record?
affidavit and the homestead exemption affidavit are filed with our assessor.
Okay.
And we do check on homes. We don't, you heard the new officer that was hired tonight, ordinance officer, that's one of his major responsibilities. Right now, we have 141 homes in the city of Allen Park that don't get any water. You can't believe anyone can live there if there's no water, right?
That's correct.
So, is that an abandoned building? We have an abandoned statute, ordinance in the city. And so, we have to look into these things just to see, to stop blight in our neighborhoods.
Well, we've got
And to maintain safe neighborhoods too.
There's a couple homes on, can I go real quick? There's a couple homes on Keppen that were bought, they're rentals, and now they're becoming Section 8s. My concern will be as to how many of those we have, and if I can contact you. Thank you.
Can I just ask for clarification? Ma'am, did you want to speak to me or the city treasurer?
No, Tina, it's okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Veronica Frazier on Cleveland.
Peggy Brennan on Cleveland.
We have a problem with our neighbor. Mr. Hayes last summer worked a weekend with his wife and his son clearing the property. Ms. Gorecki was at my home 2 times to see the property, and it's nothing but weeds, and weeds grow and grow. And I wrote to Mr. Hayes in the beginning of June, and we have no one caring about this property that is between the 2 of us.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to say that, and I have emails saved from way back in 2007, 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, and 13, where I have contacted people on the council to please come and help me deal with this problem. It is a health and safety issue for the 2 of us. It's a health and safety issue for the woman that lives in the house. And I was here last year saying that I'm a very caring person, but my patience with this has reached its limit. I think that something needs to be done. Somebody needs to intervene, whether that be the Citizens Protection Agency or the Agency on Aging. Somebody needs to help intervene with this. If it can't be handled at the level of the council and the ordinances, and something can't be done with that, then we need to take it to the next step. We have senior citizens living in this city. My father was one of them, and people actually helped him do stuff. I helped him do stuff. Somebody else needs to come in and intervene with this resident. I have concerns about her health. I have concerns about the property, the health, my yard being flooded because things aren't taken care of, the trees overhanging that I have asked to be cut down that have not been cut down. And if you would like to see the emails, I'll forward all of them to you, because I've kind of reached my wit's end. I would need something to be done about this.
And Mr. Hayes, I wish you could explain what this property was like, because it's a double lot. There's no lawn. It's nothing but whatever grows, grows. And it grows, we cut it back and it grows again. It's not like you can trim a tree and the tree stays trimmed. This comes and comes and comes. And we just appeal to our city to enforce the ordinances. And we do it year after year after year. In 2007, we had a full-time officer that came in and put X's on all these trees that were weeds, that had trunks this big. And those trees came down, and they've all grown back, and everything's grown back. And a tree fell in that yard 2 years ago, April. They cut it in hunks to get into the garage. The hunks are still laying there. The tree is still on the ground. And you talk about wood piles, getting wood piles off the ground. And I watch the meetings at home, and it's laughable to me. And Mr. Hayes forwarded my letters, my emails to him, and then he finally told me I can't do anything. We come here every year, year after year, year after year. What do we do now? What do we do?
What's the next step?
Well, under our procedures, what I would just say is give your addresses to the city administrator tonight, just as I asked the other lady, and let us go forward. But if you had come in and filed one of our questionnaires about the issue that you have in your neighborhood, that says investigation has to be done by our city administrator within 5 days.
What questionnaire?
There's a questionnaire at the clerk's desk. It's called a complaint, but
Through the
it's really,
chair,
it's not a
I
complaint.
think you guys have filled one out before.
I'm sure.
You look very familiar. There's a lot more to this than,
Yes,
there is a lady
There is
who's
a lot to
living
it.
there. So,
And
again,
we don't want to disparage her in any way. She's a lovely lady, but her home is out of control. Inside the home, outside the home.
Well, but there's only certain ways that anybody is going to get to a person who may have a problem taking care of themselves and their surroundings, okay? It's not very pleasant to do it the way the city will have to do it, but that's the only way it's going to be done. And I don't know when you filed the last complaint. Hopefully it wasn't during the administration of this mayor and
I would hope that
council.
writing to my councilman would help me, and that he finally said, I can't do anything.
Mr. Mayor, let me just say that these people have written and rewritten, and for the want of some stupid complaint form, we're telling them you're going to have to write again. For God's sake, these people have known about it for 6 months. Boomer's known about it for years.
He told me last
Oh, yeah,
year.
of course you
I
don't
would
know-
say
you don't
that
know what
Boomer
I'm
has
talking
known
about,
about
you
it
don't
since
pay
2007.
Now, this thing, these people have gone through enough. All we have to do is send some crew over,
You're out
hire
of
a
order, Mr.
landscape.
Hayes.
Excuse me, you're out of order.
Of order, Mr.
Send a
Hayes.
landscape firm over there,
Are
cut
out
it
of
down,
Hayes.
and put the bill on their lien, that's all. These people have been suffering too much.
Party over? Anyway, my name's Ted Scrocky. I live on Reek. I've been up in front of you people on umpteen times. Is Reek a truck route or not? I talked to all you people except one person on this, and I talked to them 2 people over there. I talked to the chief, and I've still got no enforcement on it. I know the chief says he's only got 3 cars. I'm only asking for an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening to watch for trucks. It's like a truck route down there. If you go down Reek, you see it where the side of the roads are starting to cave in. You know, this is ridiculous. You know, he says he has no cars, but they're always sitting on Southfield. I sit in court, they're giving tickets out like crazy, but they're not sitting on Reek giving tickets. I wish somebody would do something about it. You know, the EM says she was gonna look into it. It took me 9 months to get the signs posted. Now the signs are posted, now the police should have the right to enforce them. I got four or five Frito-Lay trucks going up and down the streets. Last week I had a car hauler going down the street at 7 o'clock at night. You know, what's a car hauler do going down there with about 10 cars on that truck? I talked to almost every council person over here. They just shrug their shoulders and laugh. Yeah, Hisco wants to fill out a complaint. I'm talking to these people in person, and nobody's doing nothing for me. I talked to you, I don't know how many times.
Who, me?
No,
Oh.
the mayor.
Don't drag me into this. No, that's fine. I thought my memory was gone. I was like, whoa.
Talked to the mayor, I talked to Bob, I talked to Hayes, I talked to the chief. Nobody's doing nothing about them. I know we're short in police cars. I'm only asking for an hour and a half or something in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening. You know, especially when I got Frito-Lay going down and up and down the road now. You know, and that's a company that's in Southgate on Reek. The sign says no trucks except for deliveries only.
Chief, can we send a letter to Frito-Lay letting them know that?
They had a letter years ago.
Can we do that again?
You know, and he's not going through there at 25 or 30 miles. He's doing about 40, because I can hear him 3 houses down before he gets to me.
These are pretty expensive fines if you fine them, though, aren't they?
And if you go talk to my neighbors, they'll all say the same thing
Is it
about the trucks.
Is it the same company all the time?
Frito-Lay, Frito-Lay, I know for sure, there's about 4 of them. I just put 3 windows in my house for $400 because they cracked.
If you know the companies, if you could get that information to the chief.
I just said Frito-Lay.
Well, that's one. You said there's 4.
Well, 4 Frito-Lay trucks.
Oh, 4. Oh, I'm sorry. I understand now.
You know, at least 4 that I know of. You know, I just paid $400 to have 3 windows replaced because they were cracked from vibrations from the trucks. And then the roads are caving in. They just relined the streets, relined the sewers down on the other side of the creek because they were caving in. That's all I got to say. I hope somebody does something for a change.
Jim Wolkowitz, Police Chief. I just wanted to make a point of clarification because I know my employees are going to see this. Mr. Hayes said something earlier where he had discussions with the police chief, and I had made a statement or comments to the fact that it's been leaking for 20 years in the building, so what's the difference if we stay there another 3 to 5 years? I did not make that statement. Anybody that's been in our police department, which I believe is most of you, any of our citizens who would like to come and look at the interior of our police department will know it's not fit for human habitation. Nobody would live in those conditions. Nobody should be forced to work in those conditions. Now, I understand there's a lot that goes into making a decision about relocating a police department in City Hall, and it's a daunting task, and I don't envy your debates, but something needs to be done. And if the litmus test is that nobody's been carried out in a body bag or on a gurney yet, so therefore the employees there can stay, then there's something fundamentally wrong with this city. So please don't put words in my mouth that say that we can stay in that location. You all know we can't. So let's get something done.
Chief, one thing, can you address sharing jail cells? And I know you had a lieutenant here that was like last meeting and tried explaining it, but the cost and things to try sharing.
Well,
prisoner
some of the
transportation
issues
and stuff.
with, you know, it's really too complex to probably go into at any length today. But the way laws work in the state of Michigan, there's jurisdiction, there's venue when it comes to courts. It sounds like an easy task to just say, well, we won't build a jail and we'll use City X's jail. But that doesn't change jurisdiction and venue. Those prisoners need to be conveyed back and forth to court within the venue that can hear their case. Somebody came up to the microphone and said, well, why don't we look at just joining Melvindale? They have a jail. Has anybody walked into Melvindale and seen their jail? They don't have anywhere close to the capacity to hold the number of prisoners that the Allen Park Police Department brings in and holds on a regular basis. So there's numerous issues about not having jail facilities within your own municipality when it comes to operating a criminal justice enterprise and getting people to the proper courts and in front of the proper judges, and being held accountable in the jurisdiction where they've committed the crime. But that's the short answer.
Thank you.
Steve Atanosowski, 40-year resident, Seacott in Hanover. I've lived by Thunderbolt all my life. That's been a shooting range for years. We've all known that. Thunderbolt has shootings every night, whether you guys know about it or not. We hear it every night over there by us, by Sylvia, so that's nothing new. So if we want money for the police, let's go to the firing range people, to Myers and all these people to give us more. Don't ask us for any more. My house was robbed of $2,000 by druggies. My basement was flooded. I lost everything in the last month. And now my neighbors have threatened to kill me. And when I called 911, Officer Doberton actually ticketed me for false 911 when that person left the scene of the crime. And I stayed there on my property as he threatened to kill me twice. One walking towards me and one with his vehicle. As you can see on the news, people are shooting everyone. I'm unarmed. Did he leave? Oh, because I'm up here. I'm unarmed in my house. I have nothing no more. When I went away to work for my security job at Tricon, I was robbed. Now I go to work downtown in Detroit in the movie studios, not for Clifton, and I can get anyone a job if they want one. I don't have a gun, and in my house I don't. What do you guys want me to do that I get ticketed for a false 911 when all this shit's being dumped on us? How should I react for a false 911 when Myers doesn't want to pay for police and you guys are asking us for more money? I support the police and the fire, but we gotta pay for it. You guys should have paid for that a while ago when you had the money. Now when we don't. Houses are empty. They're for rentals. I take care of all the ones that are for sale. I cut the grass for free. The houses that don't have nobody in them, I take care of. Ask the people in Princeton's Estates about me. I'm not the problem. It's the renters and the drug dealers. Our values are going down. What do you guys want us to do, like she said? How should I react about my neighbors threatening to kill me because I'm being the nosy, caring neighbor that's lived here all my life? Henry Ford owned the house before me.
Walter Danick, Bel Air Avenue, citizen of Allen Park. I don't know if I asked the mayor or the administrator, do we still have an ordinance officer?
We have two now,
We have two?
just introduced tonight, the second officer.
I'm sorry, I worked late and I got here late. Nice to meet you.
He worked
Oh,
late,
he
he
left.
went home.
Okay, good. Okay. I would like to mention what happened to me yesterday by a representative of this company.
We're supposed to read that?
Mr. Mizzy, could I give this to you?
Sure. Do you want me to keep it or give it back?
I want you to keep it and get back to me and tell me if they have a...
License, but I knew you were going to give this to me. Well, there's not much we can do. I'm going to let you speak.
The two young gentlemen walked up to my neighbor's house, and I know the council members all don't agree on going on social media, but I'm hearing about the Kirby vacuum salespeople on Facebook, that come at any time at night. These guys were there yesterday afternoon. And the guy came to my front door and started talking to me. My dogs were letting him know he wasn't welcome. So I said, I'll meet you in the garage. So he walks in my garage and he's stopping me. I said, excuse me, can you move so I can go put my paperwork away? Oh yeah, no problem. And he wanted to come in my house and give me a free cleaning of any room in my house with this new Kirby vacuum. So my question to him was, do you have a permit for the city of Allen Park? Which he had the, you know, the tag on, which his business card was turned towards him, so I couldn't see it. He says, oh yeah, I have my permit for Southgate in the van. I said, well, that's good. Why don't you go over to Southgate? Well, what's this? I said, I asked you if you had a permit for Allen Park. Oh, no. I thought I was in Southgate. This is a company out of Ann Arbor. Shy Enterprises. He wasn't shy about coming into my garage. He wasn't shy about, who knows, is he going to come in my house? I don't think he would because of my two dogs, which bark only if the sun comes up. But, Mr. Mizzy, I would like a return phone call to let me know, or unless you know right now that they do have a permit.
I believe it was last meeting, they were approved. Are you done and I'll go?
Yes, I am done.
This is the company that threatened to sue me, okay? They already know how I feel about them. I have no use for them, okay? Their sales tactics may be legal, but to me, they're deplorable because they live by that philosophy, don't take no for an answer. I will say this on record because I've spoke to elderly ladies. They prey on people. They prey on people to just say, okay, I'll buy whatever you got, just get out of my house. You'll be surprised how many people actually do that, which makes me sick because I asked two of them, did you need a vacuum or a cleaner? No, but there was nothing I could do at that point. They do have a permit. Do you know what time they were coming? Because I try to keep on them as much as possible.
It was, I don't know, 4 o'clock.
Okay, I can't do anything.
Something like that.
The times are different, and I have them here, but they know. They know I watch them very closely. That's why I push the no solicitor things, because of actually companies like this and things. So, two things I want to get out to everybody in Allen Park. If they don't leave after you ask them to, don't hesitate to call the police department. Because the more registered complaints I have on these people, whoever it is, the less likely they can get a permit next year. I held them off for 4 years because they were under a different name. When they came back as Shy, I held them off for 2 years and they threatened to sue me. So, but number two, jumping back, I jumped around, but a no solicitor sign. If you have one of those and they come to your house, call right away. Walt, that's your time, I apologize, but it is being handled, but you brought up a bigger thing. Please don't hesitate to call the police if they're doing anything, looking in windows, looking in garages, on property in your, we had about 3 years ago, I want to say we had someone in someone's backyard. That was the one time we got to yank their permit. I think it was 4 years ago. Wow, it's longer than that. But they went, one of their sellers went into the backyard and we could pull their permit. So keep an eye on them. You're not bothering me. You're not bothering the police. It is better safe than sorry at this point. So I think I've said a lot, but I share it, Walt. I really, they don't even call me because they know I won't talk to them anymore. They call my staff, Jim or Matt. So.
Thank you.
No, thank
They do
you.
have a permit.
Yes, they do.
Okay. The problem is they're trying to make this old man their prey, and this old man didn't fall for it.
No, and usually, I don't know what they're doing now, but it used to be, hey, I have a free gift for you. Well, the catch is, once you take that free gift, you know, they're going to keep bothering. So there's a lot of time on this. But Call the police, we're on it, Mr. Jordanik, and don't hesitate to call our office. But if it's a serious thing where you see people in the windows or coming late at night, call the police.
Okay,
But
thank
thank
you.
you, Mr. Jordanik.
Ms. Parker, it's nice to see you here today.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor. We spoke a couple of times. I've spoke with Mr. Mizzi. This is my mother. My name is Charles Craddy. My mother's name is Janice Craddy. We've lived in the Downriver area for a long time. There's been a couple of different incidences that have happened with the same police officer in Allen Park. And I think that by coming in front of the council, or at least talking to somebody that's willing to listen or make people aware of it, it gives us some kind of closure. I was written 2 different incidents. I had a citation written on it from the same police officer in Allen Park. In order to clear that matter up, I went to a gas station that's in Allen Park across the street, and I wanted to look for some video footage to show what really happened. What he was accusing had happened was not true. When we went there, the gas station owner said that he could tell me the police officer's name by what I was saying, and I didn't believe him, but he was right. He had the same police officer giving him a problem, and he also told me not too long before that there was an elderly man in front of the gas station that he was out there yelling and giving him, bad treatment. It's not professional treatment. At the same time, me and my mother was stopped. He arrested me, and then that happened right away, and he continued by, yelling at my mother. I couldn't tell everything what he was saying, but he had his hands in the air, and we were out there at least 20 minutes. There was 2 other officers that came out there, and I've spoke with a couple other police officers in Allen Park. They don't want to be involved in it, but they told me they weren't surprised that it was him. And actually, when we went to court and this case was dismissed, the judge had also put that on record that this wasn't the first time that the same incident had happened. So I just, at least it gives us closure to make sure that everybody's aware. There are people out there that aren't going to just come up here. I've never done this before. Probably never, I don't know if anyone's come up here and complained about these type of things, but it's good to make that aware. The police officer seemed to get enjoyment out of it. He was laughing, and I want my mother to speak as well, because I think that it gives some kind of closure to make people aware of it. I did speak with the chief the other day, because we did put in a couple complaints. Talked to him on the phone. He said he didn't want to talk anymore about it. When we talked with the previous mayor and the previous chief, they said that they wanted to wait and find out what the outcome of this trial was. The case was dismissed. So they said that would make a big difference in what was being done. Nothing's being done. People need to at least, I don't want to mention his name. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that, but I think that it needs to have some consideration so he knows that he has a boundary and not just feel he can do what he wants. So I'm speaking for other people that might not handle this way, and elderly people like my mother that shouldn't have to have this treatment. I want to make sure you say what you need to say.
When we went to court, the day that we went to court, the judge dismissed the case because he said it didn't make any sense to what the officer told him. And then when we were at the window, we were going to get a report, and he came over and he started threatening us and saying that he kept putting his hand on his gun when he was threatening us, and he said we better not be around him anymore. And so then I was, the judge, we went and told the judge that he was threatening us, and the judge said that we would have to call the police because there wasn't nothing he could do. So we went outside and I called the police and I told them I'm in fear for my life, that a police officer was threatening me. And there, even when he was threatening me, there was the court officer that saw that. And then there was another one that sat by the door. We had witnesses that saw all of this happening. And so
We
then...
were actually on the call, on the 911 call for 17 minutes, and they never were able to send anybody out. I don't know how many 911 calls, and we didn't receive a citation for a false call. They never said that. They said to come down to the police station and file a complaint, and we did that, and nothing's been done. So we wanted to make a report. No report has been made on that. Even though we were on the phone call for 17 minutes, there's no record of it, except our phone bill showing that we were on the phone with them.
And so the lady on the phone, she said that we didn't have to be afraid of that officer, that he's already gone home after court. But when we went to the police station, he was there. He was parked there. And I got even more scared because he had been following us every time we were in Allen Park. And I'd stopped going to Allen Park because he was always following us, and I was afraid after all that had happened. And
Well, I think you really get the idea of what's happened. This isn't the first time with this police officer, even the judge saying it. I don't know what the chief would have done or how he would have handled it, but when we tried to meet with him and talk with him, he just said he wasn't going to do anything. And they spoke with us time when we called 911 after the court. And he said they went over there, investigated it, and what we said didn't match up. All you have to do is pull the video footage, and you would see the officer come out and confront us. We didn't say anything because we were really startled by that. And I've never seen that happen after a court. I've never seen a police officer come out. They always go out another exit or something else. If you looked at the video footage, I'm sure that it's there. I don't know, I just think that that's not right to have the police officers handled in that type of manner. So I think that's something for the council. Now, you can't say you don't know that he's out there doing this. When we came in here to find out about how to come to this meeting a while back before this case was dismissed, one of the ladies that worked in the clerk's office, I mentioned that Mr. Mizzy, and she doesn't work here anymore, she said that she had experienced it. My mother has a doctor that's in Allen Park that she doesn't go to anymore, and they were aware of him. Nobody says it's Allen Park. They mention his name. So people are aware of it. He's been here a long time, so even the judge mentioned it. The case was dismissed in that matter as well.
We've let you go a little longer. Your time's been up for a couple minutes. The mayor says he's aware of the situation. He knows exactly what you're talking about, so he can fill us all in and let us know.
Okay,
thank you.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to step out here with you and your mom, okay? This is important for me to hear and to pass on to my colleagues, I guess.
Any more citizens? Okay. Come to council comments, and tonight we'll start with Councilman Templin.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's been a long night, and I'd like to thank everybody for their comments, and have a good night.
Councilman DiGiulio. Councilman DiGiulio.
He's busy.
Councilwoman Gavarecki.
I too would also like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Your comments were very valuable. I wish that more residents would have taken part in the feedback that we were looking for as far as moving City Hall. I think maybe we only got like about 10 responses back out of everybody, so I try to value your input, so I'm hoping that maybe the next time we ask for some valid input, I appreciate what came tonight. I've written some of that down, that we can go forward and make the right decisions. So thank you. Good night.
Councilman Hayes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My friend, Mr. Cisco, raised an interesting point tonight that I think I'd like to provide a little amplification on. He mentioned that sometimes we don't read our emails or we misunderstand them or whatever. And I think if you'll recall, about 3 meetings ago, we had the issue of the emergency loan came up. And people said they didn't know anything about it, they didn't hear about the delay, they didn't anything. I mentioned, well, we all got an email. I think Mr. Templin agreed with me, but a couple others up here said, I never saw that email, it must have come to you alone. Well, last meeting, I raised the issue of the appointment of certain people to the review panel. And the mayor responded to my comment by saying, and I'd like to quote, this is what he said from the last meeting, I did not respond to Mr. Hayes' email because he didn't ask me either how I came to do it or why I came to do it. He simply stated I didn't have the right to do it. The fact of the matter is, what I wrote the mayor is this, quote, where did you find the authority to independently make these recommendations? Question mark. A question is not a declaratory statement. The mayor mischaracterized my words. He reframed my words from a question to a statement. And I'd asked the mayor in writing to apologize and to correct this mistake. I assume it's a mistake. I don't know if he did it purposely to make me look bad in front of the public or whatever. But the clear point of the matter is I did not make any statement about his right to do anything. I simply asked him a question. And so tonight I'm asking him as a gentleman and as a colleague to correct his misstatement, and if he wants to take the time to go back and review the tape, as I did several times, and see and review my email, as I did, I asked simply, where did he find the authority? Because there is no authority in the law. Now, he did clarify that evening that Ms. Parker told him to do it, and I'm fine with that. All I asked him, where did you find the authority? And he chose to reframe that in that I said he didn't have the right to do that. I never said any such thing, and I want to make that clear for my public. Thank you very much.
I'm going to exercise my right to reply to the councilman. Why don't you read your both emails? I didn't read them last time. A question can be a question, but his email goes on at quite some length, and then he has the second one, and he sends these emails, and he sent them all to the council, and then he sent them all not only to the council, the second email in regard to this, but he sends them to citizens. Have no way to say a simple question to the mayor is a simple question to the mayor. He was making a statement. I refrained. Our city attorney explained the problems when you send out emails and they go to the whole council. And I think I accepted the appropriate way of doing it, you know. So that, and you should understand, when he demanded the apology, the next time he sends it, but he blind copies. But if you hit blind copy, again, it shows that he sent it to all the council. And we're in the same situation again. I don't debate any council person on matters of the email where I feel it is all inappropriate, where other council people may want to weigh in, and then we've got a real issue. Or they may feel they can't weigh in, and it's not fair, because it isn't going to come to the council, or it isn't going to be a matter that we take up. So I think his emails say much more than the one sentence he chose to read to you. Mr. Keenan.
Thank you. I do want to touch just a little bit on emails. You know, I apologize. I just looked, my emails, I have 3 different email accounts. 2 of them come directly to my phone, and my other one is my work email account. And I do not see where I received any email on the 3rd. I may have missed it. I just looked again when that was going on, but irregardless, I didn't see it. You know, there's some questions. Councilman Hayes talked about an email that was sent early on from the EM talking about the emergency loan, where it said it was not going to happen, or I don't want to put words, I don't know exactly what the wording was. And I said I had not seen that email. The email that did come had said it was postponed. So I thought he was talking about two different emails. That's where the confusion came with me. I can't speak for everybody, but the email that I got didn't say that, you know, it was off the table. So sometimes there's emails that don't come, sometimes there's confusion as to what the questions are and what have you, but it is what it is. The facility tonight. What I heard from the attorney and from Ms. Parker was at the time, I think we had a 30-day due diligence, or 30-day, not due diligence, or 60 days for the letter of intent is what I meant to say, and that time was up. We have outs on it if the numbers don't come in as the attorney said. This didn't bind us to anything. What it did is it kept the property off the market. I think people came up to the microphone tonight and acted like this is a new thing. This has been going on for months and months and months. We've had these discussions, we've had these meetings, we've toured facilities. I've got some information up here that I'd be happy to show anybody afterwards that was provided by the gentleman from Baird. We have municipal, I mean, this was not a decision that we just came, because, yes, I said earlier I thought we should table the language, but we found out after I made that statement that it's not quite binding in the sense that we have outs in it. So that's the reason I don't really feel like I flip-flopped 100%. I think it is unfortunate, and I'll say it again. There's a lot of things that happen around here. Mr. Debo came up today again, and I'm going to agree with you. You know, we got this agenda at 3:33 today, and the meeting was at 6. That's unacceptable. And I'll go back to what he said about the rollback. I agree with him. You know, and I would just say that, I mean, I don't know who intends on running up here, but I would still hope that rollback happens. We're going to be under state control in some way, shape, or form for another 2 years. And after that, I still, you know, I don't plan on being up here, but whoever is, I hope that they honor that commitment. And I think that we did say that. And I take great effort to try to, and I know people may disagree, but to try to really have integrity up here. And I've said I don't have, every decision that I've made up here has been what I've thought was right for the community. I've not benefited in any way, shape, or form on any decision I've ever made up here. I've not pushed any agenda that is for me personally in my seat up here. I've never promoted anything for me personally up here. I'm a citizen like you, and we need to get out of this city hall. We've looked at a lot of options. To Mr. Rourke, I looked at it, he brought that to my attention over a year ago, and I went over there and looked at it. I had great concerns about parking. You know, there's not a lot of parking over there with where the facility he's talking about. We've had people go through it. The other thing I want to say about the proposal, the $2.1 million to renovate, was said that French gave that number. French actually brought in a construction company. So yes, the number came from French, but it was based on an actual construction company that went out there and looked at the property. So it wasn't just an architect just throwing a number out there in left field. So there has been a little bit more done than what's been out there. But, you know, I just want to say, and I'm not going to say anything to anybody specific, but I find it very interesting that we can look at professional people and just discount them. You know, we say that architects can make money, they make money based on square footage. You know, lawyers make money based on court cases. But yet we always want to defer to the lawyers, and no offense to our city attorney, but they're the expert, you know. And if you're a lawyer and another lawyer speaks, it's like E.F. Hutton talking. But if you're a lawyer and an architect speaks, he's not useless. That guy, what does he know? If you're a lawyer and an electrician speaks, or if you're a lawyer and, you know, whoever speaks, nobody knows anything but that person. And I would suspect that if an architect heard a lawyer speak, he'd probably say a lawyer doesn't know what he's talking about. All we can do is bring experts in and have them explain to us the procedures and the processes and make what we consider to be educated decisions. I've always said, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And unfortunately right now, we don't have a lot of control over who we surround ourselves with. But I do think that we got a fairly decent team in place. I think there is some shortcomings. I think some of them were recognized tonight. I'm glad we got the new guy on board to help with the ordinances, but I think we're heading in the right direction. Thanks.
Councilman Cisco.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. You know, somebody came up the podium and said that we don't fight for the citizens. I find that a repugnant statement. Because we do. We are the citizens. We live in Allen Park. We are the ones that fought to be here, to make the decisions, to try to protect people. And that's what we continue to do, all of us in our own way, whether you like it or not. This is what we chose to do. We chose to put ourselves on the line to get elected, to come in here and make the proper decisions. That's what we did. No one's been deceived. This is part of the conspiracy thing that people want to get up here and you know, if you listen closely, are you listening? Those are the black helicopters that are over our heads that we don't see. That's part of the whole conspiracy that exists. And as far as the property next door to go, the movie studio property, let's not forget that before the studio property came into being, that the what we would call the 1600 building was promoted by the previous administration as a new city hall, new fire department, new police department, new library. That was on the books. And then that morphed into the movie studio. So let's not forget our history here a little bit. Let's understand that we're never going to forget what happened next door. That is implanted in our brains. That is never going to go away. And we are all very aware of that. So I just want to say, you know, the mayor said this building was, it's not fit for human beings to be in. And he is correct. I paraphrase. That wasn't an exact quote. And he is right. And there are people that get sick that come in here. And I've talked to some residents that come in here that sit in this room for a little while that do not feel well when they leave here. And it takes them the next day to recover. And I am one of those people. I'm extremely allergic to mold. So I just want to say that, you know, we're trying to make the best decision possible for the least amount of money. And if anybody thinks that you can get into a building for, you know, $50,000 or $60,000, you know, that's dreaming in today's world. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. Thank you.
Without objection of the council, I'll go back to Mr. DiGiulio, who will be out of order here, but Mr. DiGiulio, Councilman DiGiulio.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff brought up tonight at the meetings here. I do know one thing. We sold that property for $12 million, and I think we owe about $29 million on it, so we're $17 million in the hole. I didn't think that was such a great deal. I don't see such a great deal, too, if we sell the front 4 acres over here for $900,000. I don't see that as a great deal either. Buying that property on Allen Road, the tenant that's in it stays with the seller. The buyer doesn't get the income from the tenant. It's going to be the seller who's going to continue to get the income. I'd like to sell my property like that and keep getting the income from it. Let's see here. We have the 2 reporters here. I know we have the one from the Dearborn Herald, and do we have one from the News Herald, that young lady over there? Okay, good. We have 2 young ladies here that are our reporters now. I like the idea that we have 2 lady reporters here. And we can get a couple of chairs for you ladies if you want to sit up here with us. After all, we gave that privilege to other people. So you don't want to sit up here? No, neither one of you want to sit up here. You can be on TV. You'll go into people's houses 3 times a day, 7 days a week. You'll go right into their living room, sometimes their bedroom. You know, so. And well, I want to welcome you 2 ladies, really. I'm glad to see you're both here. And, you know, we got the house with the fleas. What a mess that was. What a fiasco. I actually called Mr. Hayes and tricked him into the yard because I felt, why should I have the fleas on me and him not get any of them? So he came out and I tricked him to go into the yard. I think. Did I trick you, Dennis?
Well, I got fleas on me.
I know. And I made Joe ride home with you because I didn't want fleas on my wife's side of the car. So I brought him there and I let you take him away. And we do have a new ordinance officer, Matthew Lieb. He's going to be out there too. I mean, there's just so much going on in this city that's appalling, I guess. I mean, just that we allow a house to get into that condition. And the ladies with the house on Cleveland Street, I know I was out there last summer too. And the young man and his mother that stepped up here, I wanted to hear more about that. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is for our city, you know. I really don't know what the answer is. It's up to you people to step up to the plate. You want to vote in the millages and give them money for 10 years? Well, so, you know, you're making those decisions. The one thing you have a voting decision on is our millages, and you vote to give more money. That's beyond me, but who am I to say? I guess, God, I'm looking at all my notes here. I can't keep track of them, so much went on at this meeting tonight. Let me see here. I think the only good thing is we're going to get the parking for the teachers over at Arnold School. They're going to be able to park their vehicles there, so that's probably the only positive thing I heard here tonight. Okay. Good night, people.
Treasurer Armstrong, I know you don't have a microphone back there, but would you like to say anything?
Thanks for coming and have a good evening.
Okay. Mr. Mizzi, are you just about back with us?
Sorry about that, people. All I want to say is thank every citizen for coming and enduring these. I really do like to thank y'all for coming out, giving your comments, and God bless you and good night.
City Administrator Folks?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to briefly comment on something that I spoke about a little bit earlier, and that was the FEMA process. And I really meant to take a brief moment at that point, and I'll do it now, and that is to truly commend our Director of the Department of Public Service. It has been a very time-intensive process. But he has led us through that process and provided all of the information requested by the county and FEMA. And ultimately, I would like to think that that helps the city of Allen Park. Just a couple of other people that I just want to mention. With the information from FEMA and the process, I do want to provide some thanks to Congressman John Dingell's office, who has led the way in making sure that the process about FEMA and next steps was always communicated along with Wayne County Homeland Security and Emergency Management Director Tim McGillivray. So other than that, I just want everyone to have a very good and safe evening. Thank you.
Emergency Manager, Ms. Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just take a moment to respond to one of the residents' concerns or questions regarding the rollback. I think it's important to state that during the time that we were going through the process related to the millage, questions came up from residents on, how that rollback process would work. And so in response to the questions, I did put together an order that laid out the process. Since that time, and that was over a year ago, but since that time, we have started working towards retiring the debt related to the Southfield lease properties and actually reissuing bonds that will save this community over $1 million a year in terms of debt service. In order to move in that direction and also to meet best practices related to the state, there were a number of changes that the state mandated in terms of me making changes in that order. So the order was revised. The 10% is still there, but it is not 10% over an indefinite time frame. The percentage is based on, again, best practices, and in order to actually position the city properly for the bond rating, there were changes that was required. And then secondly, as part of the process, there was a recommendation from the state to look at debt service coverage for various funds related to the city. So for example, as part of the policy related to the reserve policy for the city, we now have debt service coverages for the Downtown Development Authority, for the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, as well as anything related to the city's general operating fund. So I think it's important to state what has taken place, why it has taken place. It has nothing to do with deceiving the public or integrity as much as positioning the city in order for the city to save money. And so I wanted to clarify that. If Mr. Diebold, if you have any questions, I'm certainly open as always to discuss it with you. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. You heard Mrs. Craddy and her son talk about two incidents that occurred with a single police officer. The first matter, the tickets were taken to court. They were dismissed by the court at a hearing. The second matter that they discussed was that apparently occurred outside the court's courtroom, but somewhere in the court building. They encountered that officer. They did file another complaint with the police chief. As I understand it, an investigation was done by the chief and determined that the officer had not acted improperly. Now, the only thing I could recommend maybe to our city administrator is she just talk to the chief about that incident and convince herself that's was properly handled, as we don't have a public service commission at the moment. The second matter, a lot of people come up and they say, well, we talked to the council, and I know the council will call in and maybe talk to department heads or talk to other people in the city to try and resolve your problems, and we do want to help citizens whenever we can. But when you elect officials, you elect them to represent you. It is a representative government. It's not a direct initiative where every item comes down to a direct interaction between us. Normally, the mayor and council in their actions would act and interact with the city administrator, who has the responsibility by charter, even though at the moment she is under the control, as every employee in this community is, of the emergency manager. But that's the person that works with the department heads. That's the person that tries to organize the work. That's the person that tries to make certain that all our services get delivered effectively on time and the way we want, in the most cost-effective manner. And so sometimes if you came into my office and said to me, and if you've done it, you've heard me say, well, I'm going to have to go to the city administrator and ask that this situation be looked into, or I have to go to the emergency manager if I think it's over in that area. And I think that happens to a lot of the council people. We don't have the direct control of our employees, nor should we. If you remember when our sister city, Lincoln Park, decided that it would not any longer have a city administrator, that their mayor and council could run the city. And they have a structure similar to us. They have what we call a weak mayoral system council. So they terminated their city administrator, and they precipitated themselves into a spiral where they ended up with an emergency manager, and they might have been able to avoid that had they kept the city administrator in place. Remember, many of the people here are still working. We're part-time employees. Oftentimes, we're spending a lot more than what you might think a part-time employee would do, particularly in crisis matters. And think of the last 3 weeks, what the city's been through from August 11th or the last 4 weeks with the flood. The week later, we had those straight line winds or tornadoes, however you want to view it, at the south end that caused some real damage to those citizens down here. We had the serious water and wind damage occur last Friday night. Meanwhile, we've got people who've got all the regular jobs. This weekend, we had 5 water main breaks, and the DPS has to take care of every one of those, which is in itself probably each one of those is a 4 to 5 hour job to make those repairs. So there's a lot that goes on in the city that our people have to deal with, and I think by and large they do a very good job. We don't have, I think, probably the right staff, and in certain cases we're probably not as efficiently organizing the staff that we have to get the most out of them. So with that, we're going to go to a closed session, which I think we need a motion and a roll call vote.
Yes, sir.
May I have a motion? Gavareki is moved, Mr. Hayes is seconded. We go to closed session for the purposes of litigation. And would you take the roll call, please?
Since we're doing it in alphabetical, we started with Councilman DiGiulio. We'll go with Councilwoman Gavareki.
Yes.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilman Keenan. Yes. Mayor Mategas.
Yes.
Councilman Cisco.
Yes.
Councilman Templin.
Yes.
And Councilman DiGiulio.
I'll allow it.
We will start in 9:30, folks.